This episode of We Are Libertarians is brought to you by Audible.com. Enjoy one free audiobook courtesy of We Are Libertarians. Choose from more than 100,000 audiobook titles, including works by Ron Paul, Walter Block, Murray Rothbard, and the Cato Institute. Audible.com also has audio of radio and TV programs and audio versions of magazines and newspapers. You can get the Audible app on any mobile device or download the audio to your computer. Go to audibletrial.com/WAL or head to WeareLibertarians.com and find the link to get one free month of Audible today. Welcome to We Are Libertarians for this week, and it has been almost exactly a week. It's been less than a week since our last podcast, so shut up, yous.
What do you mean, you people?
You people. With me, as always, is my faithful companion, Greg Lenz.
I like to say we're partners.
Right. My wall partner. Over there is formerly scumbagish Republican, formerly Republican Hannah Drazic. Hannah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Nice to see you. And on the line...
Oh, my God.
This is a treat.
I am so excited.
We have a treat for the audience. See, here in Indiana, we've had a little thing going on this past couple weeks. If you listen to this podcast, you may have heard in 102 all the stuff going on with RFRA. We'll call it RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And Indiana passed this law, and it's been quite the kerfuffle.
Oh, yes.
As the kids are saying these days. And then Arkansas, or as we like to call Indiana Junior...
Arkansas.
Right.
Passed a law just like it, and their governor did not sign it. So we're going to ignore that fact. And because we feel so bad as Hoosiers, it's been so rough on us, we needed somebody to pick on. And we didn't know anybody in West Virginia or Kentucky, so we had to get somebody from Arkansas. So with us is Rodger Paxton. Rodger, how are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Glad I'm here so you guys have somebody to pick on.
Long-time faithful listener to the podcast and one-time enemy of Greg Lenz.
Arch enemy.
And
we'll see how this podcast goes before I update that status.
Yep.
What is your role in the national and the local Libertarian Party there?
I have no role nationally anymore. I was on the Judicial Committee for a while. Now I'm just the secretary of the state party in Arkansas, the Libertarian Party.
Just the secretary? Please. Be a little more proud of being the secretary. Listen, I am the secretary general.
Well, I'm only the secretary for 2 more months. I'm not going for another term after this, so I'm done.
Why is it all libertarians give it about 1 term and then pretty much hate politics?
Well, I've been active in the Libertarian Party of Arkansas for about 8 years. I was the 1st district rep for a while, then I was the chairman for 2 terms, and now I've been the secretary, so I need a break.
Who is the chair of the Arkansas party there?
That would be my lovely wife, Jessica Paxton.
See, it's a total Putin thing going on.
This is.
She's Dmitry Medvedev.
Yeah.
Right.
She's really just a placeholder for Rodger.
No, I am done. We're both done. We're going to take at least 1 term off, maybe 2.
Yeah, your lovely wife. She's fantastic. Probably corralling the kids somewhere, I imagine.
Absolutely.
And in the background of this Skype connection that he has is amazing. It sounds like he's in the room with us. In the background of the picture is the bed.
That's where the magic happens, like we said.
There we go. This is like Wall After Dark. Peppers is finally getting his wish. So I think I actually was responsible for you getting on the Judicial Committee, and I never really asked if that went well. So do I owe you an apology, or what? Well,
no, and you were very much responsible for that. But no, there's no apology necessary. It was the quietest term ever. We had no business brought before the Judicial Committee at all. So it was great.
Good. Okay.
Very libertarian.
You basically settle party disputes as a Judicial Committee should, right?
That's exactly right. Any dispute that's within the state parties to the LNC or anything like that would then go to the Judicial Committee.
And you had no business brought before. That seems impossible.
For a Libertarian Party?
Yeah, we can't even agree on a Facebook post, let alone rules for a party.
Yeah.
Well, the term before mine was one of the most active in history, so I guess I just got lucky.
Right.
They feared you. That's smart.
Right, that's exactly right. And I was actually served on there with the current LNC chairman, Nick Sarwark. He was Judicial Committee at the same time I was.
Nick is a good dude, and I'm glad he's the chair.
Yeah, he's going to be on my podcast in a couple of weeks. So
name dropper.
Yes, we haven't promoted Lava Flow yet.
No,
I
I was
didn't know that.
waiting for that.
I was getting there. Well, Rodger, in the very first episode of your podcast, while you were explaining why do you need another libertarian podcast, you listed your favorite libertarian podcasts. And you seem to be missing the most important libertarian podcast, the greatest podcast there ever was.
Oh, I forgot the Scott Horton show?
That's right. But then you also didn't mention We Are Libertarians. What
Well,
gives,
the funny thing about that is I had a script, and it was on my script. I can take you back and show it to you. It just didn't make it on the
Like
show.
Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yeah.
It must be an Arkansas thing.
He blacked out.
Yeah.
That's his excuse.
Did you delete
exactly
the servers that those notes were stored on?
Well, I printed 30,000 pages of it and just lost that one, I guess.
Dang it.
So when you tell us a little bit about the podcast, why did you start another podcast? What goes on there? Why should people download? Go immediately to their podcatcher and download that podcast.
Well, you can find it at thelavaflow.com, and LAVA stands for Libertarian, Anarcho-Capitalist, Voluntarist, and Agorist. I woke up at 3 o'clock one morning with that in my head, and I knew I had to do something with it.
You needed each one of your personalities to have their podcast, so you put them on one. Very helpful for the listener. All four personalities have different political views. Very consistent.
Well, no, they have the same political views, just different ways of going about it. I mean, for example, you guys are minarchists. You think that a little bit of force is okay, whereas I'm an anarchist. I think that no force is okay. But generally, we have the same political ideas.
I don't know. I might be all on the anarchy train.
Yeah,
I think I'm pretty much there.
You're down the anarchy road quite a long way.
I found myself arguing with people on Facebook. It's like, no government's okay. This past couple weeks, so I might be there because I believe that all the shortcomings that I've had with the philosophy can be solved by coming technology, and we'll
I agree.
Yeah, and we'll explore some of that in future shows. But so you kind of do a roundup of the news. What else do you do on the show?
Well, I start off every show with it's kind of a rant, but it's a kind of a polite rant, I guess, called What's Wrestling My Jimmies This Week. Then I kind of go into the news, and then I do different segments, everything from stupid shit the statists say to my roads. I mean, I have different segments that I do on different topics.
Yeah, I enjoy the podcast, and I have felt that it's one of those podcasts that has been missing from the Libertarian podcastosphere, if that's a thing, podcastosphere. I just made up a word, Hannah. It's sort of a news roundup. It's a fun look at it. It's entertaining, and it's good. You should check it out, please. The Lava Flow podcast. Get it today. Do you have a website?
Thelavaflow.com.
Now we're plugging that. And I will say this for him, for us, and for the Cap podcast that you heard about last episode.
How about Obsessive Viewer?
The Obsessive Viewer, dead to me.
Yep, me too.
Nope, dead to me. Here's the thing with podcasts, okay? You can listen. I listen on Downcast. That is my personal app that I use. How do you listen to podcasts?
For Rodgers, I mainly just download it to my phone right off the website.
Right. And then what do you do? You listen to podcasts at all?
No.
Okay. Rodger, what do you use to listen to podcasts?
I use iTunes.
Okay. So we got a variety
Statist.
here. Now, yeah, likes the overarching technology, whatever.
Yeah, he submits it to Apple. They clean it up and approve it with the government, and then Rodger listens to it. He likes
right.
he likes his anarchy filtered.
For basically all intents and purposes, iTunes podcast directory is where all the source of all podcasts flow. If you're in the top 100 of podcasts in any category or in general, you're going to stay there for a while. Look at This American Life. It's been up there forever. Dan Carlin, a podcast that we all love. Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, or Common Sense, two fantastic podcasts. You get to that point. You get up in the rankings by having the fans of your podcast go to iTunes and rate and review positively your podcast.
Emphasis on positively.
Positive. Now, we have almost all 4 and 5 stars. Almost all. We have 49. And Rodger, you can attest to this. We only have one negative review. right?
Yes, and it's quite funny. I can't wait till I get one that funny because I'm going to make so much fun of it on my podcast.
Right.
Well,
So
I plan on doing that later this evening, so be prepared.
Hannah's doing it right now.
Yeah.
So you have to go to the iTunes page, which you can access from the front page of WeAreLibertarians.com. Just click on the little blue iTunes button. It'll take you and open it up on iTunes. You got to have the software. You rate and review my podcast here. I said my podcast because I'm cheerleader. My podcast, Rodger's podcast, Hannah will probably have a podcast because everybody's got a podcast.
You love Mike Pence's podcast,
I
don't
love
you?
Mike Pence's the Religion Report.
Yeah, Pencertarians.
Right, Pencership. So if you go to iTunes, please rate, review any podcast you like. Give them a positive rating because that helps. Our goal by the end of this year is to get into the top 100 of news and politics. And we can only do that if we have your help. If you're a new podcast, you can get into the new and noteworthy section pretty easily because you're new. If you're an older podcast like us, where we've been around for 3 years, the only way to move up in the rankings is to get your listeners to do a little action. We don't need money from you. We like money from you. We like you to go to audible.com/wall. I think, no, it's audibletrial.com/WAL. You can find that link at the website. Get a free trial. All that helps. Money helps, of course. But the best thing you can do is free. Help us out. Help us reach our goal by the end of the year. Get to the top of the charts there as we move into 2016. Because here's our goal. By the end of the year, we want to be in that top 100 in news and politics because we want to be, sorry, Rodger, the dominant libertarian podcast. We want to be right up there with Tom Woods, outranking him. I think we've got the funnest libertarian podcast. Sorry, Rodger, out there. And people are going to have a lot more interest in what libertarians have to say as we move through the primaries and the election next year. So we want to be there and give information to people, and you can help do that for free. And iTunes directory feeds to Downcast. It feeds to Stitcher. It feeds. Well, Stitcher has a different ranking system. So if you rate us on Stitcher, that's great too. We're the 3,000th. We're the 3,000th most popular show on Stitcher. Who knew? Whoa, lightning. Sorry, ADD moment. Literally, I'm looking at Greg and Hannah as I'm saying that about Stitcher, and a bolt of lightning goes out the window, and I'm like, "Oh, something shiny." So, anyways, squirrel. So somebody, Rodger, if I get distracted, please hold up your keys and dangle them in front of the microphone. Okay?
I'll be sure to do that. But I do have two things to say. First of all, don't expect Chris or Greg to reciprocate if you rate and review their podcast and expect them to do the same to yours, because I'm still waiting several weeks later.
I did that today. I'm Hoosier. I don't know what my name is. I used to be something, but I rated today. I gave you 1 star and called you a nerd.
Thank you. And the second thing is WAL Drools, TLF Rules, lavaflow.com.
Why did we allow a troll on our show?
No kidding.
We're letting him promote himself.
We're being nice.
Yeah,
I am being a benevolent dictator and allowing you onto my airwaves.
On the golden Klaczynski microphone.
Oh, Rodger, it's good to have you here. We chat back and forth a lot, and it's nice to have you. And glad you started a podcast.
Yes, and keep it up because I enjoy listening, and there are very, very few podcasts I actually look forward to.
Yours is not one of them, but maybe one day. Something to aspire to, Rodger.
Yeah, that's incredible praise, Greg. Even though you want to bomb Arkansas and bring freedom to it, I appreciate the sentiment.
I don't like it that you live in a tyrannical society, so I'm going to fix it for you.
Please do. Please do. With our current Republican legislature, I don't care what you do. It can't be as bad as what they're doing.
What are your thoughts on Tom Cotton?
Well, if you had listened to the Lava Flow, my last episode at lavaflow.com/7, I had a pretty good rant about him. I mean, he is a neocon dream. Like I said in my podcast, he wraps himself in the American flag every night when he goes to bed, and the guy eats apple pie for dinner. I mean, he is a neocon dream, and he scares the hell out of me.
I think at night he transforms into a bald eagle and keeps a watchful eye over the Middle East.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He's terrifying.
Okay, so while we've got Rodger here, and Rodger, you're the most frequent critic. So we're going to get to one topic first Then we're going to get to our Facebook discussion and why Facebook is the worst place to discuss politics. And then I have a bone to pick with you people. Not you three. The people that are commenting on our Facebook page.
Oh.
Dear Leader is greatly displeased.
Yeah, his subjects aren't getting in line.
And then we're gonna go into a little RIFRA Mike Pence discussion, and we're gonna talk a little Iran. So that is what is on the table today. But Rodger, you're probably the most frequent critic of Wall. When we do, our mission here is to take current events and what is being talked about in the news cycle and discuss it from a variety of libertarian philosophies and different points of view. Part of my problem is that I try to, give political news, and then people assume that that's like our stance, and that's part of the Facebook rant. But, so we spend a lot of time talking about Republicans and Democrats because they normally dominate the news cycle. And Libertarians have Gary Johnson. Presumably, Gary's going to run again. By all accounts, he is going to seek our nomination and might have to battle Jesse Ventura for that nomination.
I say have him do a cage fight for the nomination.
Oh.
Don't even vote.
The Libertarian Party of Indiana put out a meme yesterday saying that Jesse Ventura was going to speak at their state convention, and it was an April Fool's joke and a great marketing ploy. But humorless libertarians killed it, and it had to be pulled within an hour.
The literal libertarians,
right? Because I'm not going to that convention, and our wonderful chairman here, Dan Drexler, was like, can't let a joke give us a financial ruin. But it was a joke, people. So
go back to the basement.
Right. And so Gary Johnson is running, and you can only talk about one person in one angle because there's not many angles on Gary Johnson because he's darn near close to perfection as politicians go.
Well, I do disagree with him. He wants a fair tax. Based on the alternate tax theories, I much prefer the flat tax. But, the way I see it, though, anything that's going to lower my taxes and lower my burden. We've got 74,000 pages right now in the tax code. 100 years ago, that was 400.
Right.
So anything that lowers that burden, I'm okay with, even though I disagree with him on exactly how we get there. But other than that, yeah, I think he's pretty darn near as good a libertarian as you can find.
And so I think the discussion with Gary Johnson is always going to be, if Rand Paul is the nominee, should Gary Johnson be in the race? Because should the Libertarians run an attractive candidate, somebody that is a former two-term New Mexico governor, vetoed over 700 bills, more bills than any other governor than in recent history.
More bills than all the other governors while he was governor combined.
Right.
So he vetoed more bills than the other 49 governors combined.
Yeah.
He's a self-made, extremely wealthy individual.
A guy who started a carpentry business, handyman service, and turned it into the largest construction business in the state of New Mexico and the Southwest.
And now he has climbed, I believe, all 7 of the largest peaks, each peak on the largest peak on each continent. I think he just did his last one.
And he has celiac disease. So he's, Hannah, one of those real gluten people, unlike some people in this room who just choose not to eat gluten because it might go to their hips.
Is she gluten intolerant?
She is gluten intolerant.
Do we need a gluten freedom bill to protect the people that aren't entirely on board with gluten but need to be empowered by gluten?
When I get a migraine, I'll come over and haunt you guys.
When don't you have a migraine?
Shut up.
Hannah's our little sister that we never wanted. We love her to death.
Better.
So Rodger, if Rand Paul is in the race, and our buddy Creighton's going to have a totally different take than you, which is why we want to start with you, and then give Creighton a chance to scream at you later.
To call you a left libertarian and ask why you're in bed with Democrats.
If Rand Paul is the nominee for president, should Gary Johnson be in the race for president as the Libertarian Party nominee?
100%. And for several reasons, but primarily because the LP relies on that presidential candidate for ballot access in a lot of states. So, for example, in Arkansas, for us to retain ballot access for the Libertarian Party, the only way we can do that is by getting either 3% for the president or 3% for the governor. In 2016, we don't have a governor running. That's in 2018. So for states like us, it's absolutely imperative that we have a candidate running. Not only that, but also to bring, notoriety and information to the people from the Libertarian Party. They need to see an active Libertarian Party. But number 2, because Rand Paul isn't a Libertarian. That's the primary reason.
Okay, explain that.
Well, I don't have to. Rand Paul will explain it to you. He says he's not a libertarian. Nowhere on his literature, on his website, nowhere in his speeches will you hear him say he's a libertarian. He's been asked if he's a libertarian, and he says he's not. Everything says he's a conservative. He is absolutely a conservative. He's not a libertarian. Now, he does hold some libertarian ideas. I'm certainly not saying that. And I do believe that of the top people running right now, between him, Bush, all of those others, he would without a doubt be the best of those.
Right.
But he's still not a libertarian.
Yeah, he's still the lesser of the evils.
The prettiest ugly girl at the ball.
Right. I mean, I would not be upset to have him as president because, like I said, he is much better than everybody else. But if it were between him and Gary Johnson, Gary Johnson's got it.
What are some of the aspects where they differ? I mean, what are some of the things that they disagree on?
Well, Rand Paul was against drone strikes before he was for them. I mean, that's one thing. He flip-flopped on that. He's very interventionist. Of course, he signed the Tom Cotton letter that drew so much ire from everybody. He signed it along with Ted Cruz. If that's his idea of non-intervention, then wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that.
Let me challenge you on that. I mean, if the Iran deal was signed today, we were recording this on April 2nd,
and
2015.
A
framework was agreed upon.
Yeah,
and there was no deal. The deal will take
June 30th is when it's expected to be signed and delivered.
So it isn't negotiating better than bombs. I mean, and that was sort of what Rand Paul was arguing, wasn't it?
The Tom Cotton letter was designed to do one thing, to interfere in those talks. That's it. The neocons in Congress and in the Senate do not want talks going on between the White House and Iran. It's that simple. That letter was designed to disrupt those talks. Nothing more.
Okay, so he also flip-flopped on defense spending. Rand Paul did. Can one of you two nerds explain what exactly happened with that?
Well, his office came out and said he didn't really flip-flop. They said, well, what he's trying to do is stick it to those conservatives who want to increase defense spending without actually paying for it. So he threw his own bill in, increasing the defense spending quite a large margin, but showing cuts in other areas how he was going to pay for it. But I'm sorry, I don't buy that. I mean, his dad used to do the same thing, putting in bills that had, showing how to pay for it and whatnot, but he never increased the defense spending doing it.
He did increase the military budget, but he offset every expenditure with cuts to, and this is the danger of what he did in his budget, to social programs and various other governmental programs. It was not, in my opinion, a strategic move because it allows Cruz and Rubio, who are his main antagonists in the debate, to position themselves as compassionate conservatives over Rand Paul, who really just wants to watch poor people starve.
Right. Okay. Right. Gary Johnson's probably a little more of a civil libertarian than Rand Paul, and by that I mean the drug war.
Gary Johnson is the CEO of a marijuana company right now, so he obviously is against the drug war.
Does it actually exist, though? Or is it just in fundraising and development?
Primarily on paper. I mean, they do have some financial assets, but very little. I mean,
they have no products to sell or
but
anything
it's
like
in
that,
its
right?
infancy.
Yeah, they don't. It's in its infancy. They don't have any products. Gary Johnson's also head of Our America Initiative. You can check that out. It was sort of started to be his campaign for liberty. I don't know how successful it's been. It's certainly not been nearly as successful as Campaign for Liberty was in recruiting college students and fundraising for his PAC. But you can find out more about Gary at Our America Initiative if you'd like. And I think it's an important distinction. I think this is the problem that I see so many times with mostly Republicans, but Democrats have a touch of it too. We've experienced on, I've seen some of the tweets and some of the things that are coming into Rupert's social media. Rupert Boneham ran against Mike Pence and John Gregg in 2012 for governor and was the most pro-LGBT candidate in the state's history. The first and only. And John Gregg was, I'm for civil unions, kinda.
Only unless it makes me uncomfortable.
Right. And was not progressive. And many progressive and LGBT groups really took exception to Rupert being in the race because he was stealing votes from Democrats.
All the data in libertarian voting patterns support. I mean, it's real close to 50-50, but it leans every time like 53-47 from the left.
here in Arkansas, since the Republicans, have taken over control. I mean, there was a Democrat legislature forever until recently. We actually absolutely see that. We get many more Democrat votes than we do Republican votes.
Right. And so it is.
And in Arkansas, Democrats like an Indiana Democrat.
Right. It's basically.
Blue
They're
basically.
pro-union. They're just pro-union, and that's the biggest difference.
Many of the exit polling, and I totally spaced out what you guys were just saying, but many of the exit polls and the data that I've seen, it's really a third. A third former Democrats, a third former Republicans, and a third just natural,
Moderates.
organic libertarians that just kind of come into the philosophy. And the vast majority of libertarians that I've ever been around, that applies. I mean, just most of them come from somewhere. They voted for somebody because they're politically engaged. You don't become a libertarian if you're not politically aware. If you're just
Hannah's kind of the perfect example.
Yeah.
Except she came more of the. I mean, she probably came the route I did, and you did as well from the Republican Party
Super
too.
far right Republican.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Hannah's actually somebody that one of the reasons I wanted to have her on, because she can give insight on a couple stories. Hannah actually posted you just don't know it yet.
We're not talking abortion. I thought that's why you had her on.
Hannah, I met in 2011. 12. Hannah was working for Republicans, working for Mitt Romney. I walked in. She actually moved into my apartment complex, and Hannah's surprisingly outgoing, and so she just messaged me, and she's like, "Hey, I'm living in your neighborhood. You want to be buddies?" And I'm like, "I'm a married man, young lady." She was like, "There's just like this attractive 22-year-old girl. Like, hey, you want to be friends? You can come over to my apartment if you want." I realized later that it's because she was homeschooled and didn't quite get everything yet, but
I figured it out.
yeah.
Let's
Let's not talk
you
about homeschooling. We homeschool my boys, and they are very socially adept. I promise you.
Thank you.
No, I'm not
because
picking on
parents are perfectly positioned to judge that. Totally unbiased.
I wasn't trying.
my kids are normal.
Oh yeah, he eats crayons.
Yeah.
All kids do that these days.
I wasn't trying to be weird. I just was lonely and wanted to hang out with people.
Because you were new to town,
And then took in a
True.
hermit.
yeah.
I did take in a hermit.
You did have like a homeless guy move in with you for like 7 weeks, and like here's a guy who is twice her size, she's such
I'm a nice person.
she's a sweet girl, but man, you have a random dude sleeping on your couch, and she's like, he won't leave. I'm like, of course he won't leave. He's sharing an
You
apartment
cook
with
him dinner every night. Why would he leave?
Right, he gets a free.
I wouldn't leave for that matter.
Yeah.
Right. You walk around in a towel. Of course he's not going to leave.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Oh, okay.
That was a little weird.
Sorry, that was just the
It was a
movie.
negligee.
That was the movie we made. So Hannah, so we met, and you were working at. I walked into your apartment, which was just down the street from mine.
It's true.
And I walk in, and it's giant Romney banners, all these Republican Party paraphernalia. It's all on the wall. It's just ridiculous. It was
So,
ridiculous.
for the record, I was broke and didn't have anything to put on my wall.
So put nothing on the wall. It is better than a giant Romney.
Well, maybe it is now, but not then.
What was it?
It
a
could have
flag?
been Obama, like everybody
No,
else that was her age.
It was like a huge rally sign. That
Right.
They had something, I don't know.
Said
So-
Mormons for Mitt.
Probably.
But Hannah worked for. That's the second time my voice was correct today. So Hannah worked for.
13.
I give up.
Puberty's a bitch.
It
Isn't it?
is. It is. I'm 31. my balls are dropping.
Is he 31 or
Thanks for
13?
catching him, Greg.
I'm still waiting.
All right. So Hannah worked for Republican candidates, worked for the Mitt Romney campaign, for the Right to Work campaign. So very hardcore conservative. Grew up in a very sheltered, homeschooled, conservative Christian background. Very religious.
Baptist?
Super religious. Yeah.
Super Baptist, like bun with the skirt Baptist.
Yeah.
So you were Southern Baptist, not at first.
No, Independent Baptist.
Yeah.
Independent,
Oh, my.
Like IFB, Independent Fundamental Baptist.
There's an IFB.
Yeah, it's called IFB.
I'm going to start a Facebook
It's
group.
not an actual, like, they're independent, so there's not, like, an actual, like, but it's like libertarians. Like, nobody can agree on anything, so they're all
Right.
separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Southern Baptists down here wear makeup and all that stuff. So that's
Oh,
certainly
no.
not Southern Baptists. Down here, that's
No.
the Pentecostals with the buns and no makeup
Yeah,
and all that.
it was basically Pentecostals without the white hankies waving.
Right. Yeah, I was a Pentecostal preacher for a while. Now I'm an atheist.
Were you really?
I'm sorry.
Yes, I was.
Have you ever been bitten by a snake?
No. We didn't go quite that far. Just right on the cusp.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you get the
So you
Independent
healed
Fundamental
people
Baptist
that couldn't
thing.
walk.
Right.
We'll delve into that later.
That is
This is
great.
good times.
So Hannah, You posted a status this week that said what?
I don't know what status are we talking
The
about.
libertarian status, where you talked about Greg and I, which is all we care about.
I don't remember exactly what I said. Hold on, I'll tell you what I said.
So
You're going to have to edit this.
All right. So you were really a Pentecostal preacher, and now you're an atheist? How did that happen, Roger?
I'm a fan.
I read the Bible.
Oh. Well, see, I had the opposite effect. I read the Bible, and I became a Christian from an atheist.
See, Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, more atheists I talk to, that is generally the stock answer. They finally decided to read the Bible uncritically and open their eyes. I mean, some of the stuff in the Bible is just horrendous. And I can't imagine supporting it.
Gotta love the Old Testament.
See, I was an atheist all through high school, and then senior year, I started studying Buddhism for whatever reason. I read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and that kind of opened the door for Christianity. And Buddhism is what? What are you saying?
I'm just shaking the keys.
Oh, you're shaking the keys. Okay. Anyways, yeah, back to Hannah. So your status said what?
It said, every day I find myself becoming more and more libertarian, and it is because of you two. I'm not going to lie.
High five. Yeah, because
yeah.
we took in this young little girl who just didn't understand anything about life or politics.
They took me at the perfect time when I was just starting to question everything that I've been taught my entire life.
My conversion to libertarianism, my
Yeah.
conversion was basically like, okay, I've been saying all these Rush Limbaugh talking points forever, and now people are challenging it, and I have no answer, so let me go find some answers, and that's how I became a libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
And you were kind of falling out of politics. You stopped working in politics and started working in real life.
Politics made me angry.
And you just kind of couldn't argue with our sound and flawless logic, right, Greg?
Sometimes.
And you hated Mark Warner.
Oh, see, that's not nice. We love Mark.
Yeah, I love Mark. My favorite day is make fun of Mark Warner Friday on Facebook. And I am fired up and ready to go for tomorrow. I got some good stuff ready.
Good. Glad to hear it. Mark,
Coming in guns blazing.
So, Mark, who's been a guest on the podcast, you don't need to know more context. That was rude, Hannah. Rude.
I'm sorry. We can just delete that.
No, we can't. We don't do that here. That would take work and effort.
And we know from earlier that you don't do that.
That is true.
Yeah, I was shocked to find out that there's almost no editing done to this show. That's fascinating.
There isn't. I mean, we want people to have the live experience, flaws and all. I apologize. I should not have called Governor Pence a scumbag last week. That was inappropriate, and I thought about deleting it, and Greg's like, nope, leave it in. You said it, leave it. So
You
we
meant
did.
it.
Yeah, I did at the time. Yeah,
Appropriate,
You still
but
mean
accurate.
it.
I really don't. He's actually not. He's just wrong.
He's a political scumbag.
Okay, political scumbag.
Yeah.
Yes. Personally,
Definitely.
Personally, he's a really good, high-character guy, and we mentioned that.
right. So Hannah gets exposed to Libertarian Party people and becomes more and more libertarian. And Chris Cantwell, who is somebody that I probably do agree with philosophically, but I just really do not like his approach or his style. I think that's fair to say, right? I think I'm being polite. But
He's the polar opposite of Pence. Terrible character, great politics.
Well, and you're absolutely right. His character is way off base sometimes, but he's damn it if he's not right a lot.
And
if you ever read any of his stuff, and I read it quite a bit just to see what that side is doing, and he is absolutely dead on.
Oh, yeah.
a fantastic writer. And
I just don't like how he interacts with people.
yeah.
In his personal life, not politically.
What? Roger paused. I think Roger. All right, good.
He's
All right.
back.
All right, we'll turn the video off. So Cantwell wrote a piece called "Why I Left the Libertarian Party" or "Why I Rejoined the Libertarian Party," and Cantwell's point was it was the first point of contact I ever had with libertarianism, and that is true for most people. I think from my transition and Hannah's transition towards libertarianism, I'm not going to say she's a libertarian. Only she can do that.
I have yet to vote for a libertarian candidate.
Yeah, and there is a point of contact, a comfort, where you are brought in, and there's a transitional period. So you are grown up, you are taught you grow up and you're taught all the things about American government and the way that the political system works, and you get politically engaged, and you vote for one of the two major parties. You realize they don't represent you. You come to the Libertarian Party. You still get to exercise what you know. You can vote. You can run for office. You can participate. And then I think over time people don't get involved with the Libertarian Party because they kind of go, listen, I'm I don't see value in politics. It's not that I don't like the Libertarian Party. It's not that I'm not going to vote for Libertarian candidates or support them financially. It's just I'm not going to spend a lot of time going out and doing the business of politics, because at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to get us towards an anarchist or minarchist society. And so I think that's why a lot of people end up leaving the Libertarian Party. I don't, there's always, of course, they're unpure, but politics is impure.
By definition.
So that's why
I haven't met an honest politician yet.
Yeah, so that's why I really agree with Cantwell's assessment that, he said, listen, they need all the help they can get. The Libertarian Party of Indiana wasn't that active and vocal about RFRA this last week or two. And it's not because they were not wanting to put something out, it's because no one was writing the press release, because the person that writes the press releases didn't have time. And so if somebody had said, hey, I can write a press release, or I can talk to a couple people and synthesize this and put this out, they would have been more vocal. And so Cantwell said, I'm going to get involved in the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and I'm going to help them because I want more people to be brought to liberty. And they may not agree with me right away, but it's much like Maya's presence on this podcast. You may not like everything that Maya says or stands for. I know I don't. But Maya is that absolutist that you measure yourself against and you go, oh, I think I'm starting to agree with Maya because I can't refute it. And I think that probably all four of us have had that experience, and the person in the car is listening, shaking their head, going, yeah, first time I ever heard the word libertarian was because of a Libertarian Party candidate. Or
Ron Paul.
Or Ron Paul, or Neil Bortz, or Glenn Beck. Mm-hmm. I'll guarantee that's like 85%.
I was going to say, really, Ron, at the national level, people were aware of him, even if they didn't know what the hell libertarian meant, if it meant anything at all. But then, here locally, because the Libertarian Party was pretty small before you were executive director, right?
The Libertarian Party here in Indiana has been one of the stronger state parties because they've had an executive director for most of their 30-year existence, or whatever it is. 40-year, gosh, almost. And so in the late 80s, early 90s, they hired an executive director and hired staff. Really does wonders. Now, when I took over, it had been dormant for a couple years and almost no candidates. It was like 2 weeks before the election, and someone was trying to get a hold of our 1st district congressional candidate, and nobody in the leadership structure had their contact information. The office was a disaster.
Hit them up on Friendster.
Yeah, and so we took the Libertarian Party of Indiana from, kind of a state of dormancy and really ratcheted up. We ran 100 candidates in 2010, regained ballot access. 2011, we had a city council campaign where, we spent, I think, $75,000, 50 of which was donated by the National Party, which is controversial. And then in 2012, ran Andy Horning for Senate and Rupert for governor, and had a fantastic top of ticket and had a ton of activity. And, really the party brought in a ton of people. And our candidates, people like Rupert and people like Andy and Chard Reed and some of the candidates that we had, provided a very rational, reasoned argument for limited and less government, and in some cases no government at all. And one of the benefits of having Libertarian Party candidates is that they're not really considered relevant by their opponents, and then they go to the local debates and the local meetings, and they rub shoulders with their Libertarian counterpart, and the Democrat and the Republican candidate, especially the Republicans, go, that guy makes a lot of sense. And there are a lot of times where our Libertarian candidates would maintain a relationship, a friendship, or an acquaintanceship of some sort with the person that got elected because they'd want to bounce things off of them.
Or just steal your ideas outright, like Pence.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, one of Rupert's first campaign platforms was, introducing vocational education and not saying everyone's going to college. We can solve a lot of our crime issues by introducing vocational education. And Pence tested it and ended up making a TV commercial out of it.
Yeah.
And implemented that idea. And so Rupert, in a big way, was the inspiration for that. Now, Rupert took flack for that because, you're trying to reform public education and not just abolish it. So
my policy position is light it on fire.
right.
Every state institution, take a Molotov cocktail and throw it at the institution.
Yeah.
So, a Mazel Tov cocktail.
Yeah, Mazel Tov.
Mazel
Hey,
Tov.
you got to have that.
So a lot of the benefit of the Libertarian Party and maintaining ballot access by running a presidential candidate and hitting 1% in some of these states are those benefits. Is that you bring more people to the Libertarian movement, you give them more political skills, you get a greater fundraising donor base. So that means that there are more people that listen to the show. There are more people that donate to Cato. There are more people that start their own podcast. There are many benefits to the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement, and I just don't see Rand Paul getting significantly damaged by Gary Johnson's presence in the race. I don't believe in the wasted vote syndrome. I'm sure some candidate at some point in history has lost because there was a Libertarian candidate in the race and they pulled votes, but I don't believe that a Republican or a Democrat owns anyone's vote. You have the right to vote your conscience and vote for the candidate that is best for you. I'd like to see same-day voter registration in Indiana. I'd like to see the erasure of straight-ticket voting in Indiana, which just enables stupid and lazy voters because they don't educate themselves on individuals. They just vote for party. I'd like to see, I'd like to see a lot of voter reforms to give people more access to the polls, and
I think the day off's a great idea, personally. Make it a national holiday
and get rid of the oppressive standards for ballot access in most of these states. In our state, it is 2%, which is roughly 30,000 people in the state of Indiana that have to vote for the Libertarian candidate for Secretary of State to stay on the ballot. Ironically, for about 4 hours one time, the Republicans lost ballot access, and we were the minority party in Indiana because their Secretary of State got arrested for voter fraud. That's right. The guy running Indiana elections was arrested for voter fraud. His name's Charlie White. Look it up. So,
that's a good story.
Yeah. And so I'd like to see that lowered to 0.5%, like it used to be before it was raised, and that would be 10,000 people. And I think that 10,000 people, or 5 to 10,000 people voting for a for any party candidate, is enough to justify what a political party in Indiana might mean. What are voter access laws like in Arkansas? How do you guys get ballot access there?
It's we have to go through a ballot referendum where we have to request access to the ballot with at least 10,000 valid signatures. We're in that process right now for the third time in a row. So we need really about 14,000 signatures. And then to retain, we have to get either 3% of the governor or 3% of the president, depending on which year it is. We have to do it every 2 years. So it's pretty challenging here.
Yeah, I say 3% seems awfully high for a national presidential candidate.
Yeah, and it's only that one race each 2 years, either the governor or president. A lot of states are, any statewide candidate or anything like that, but no, here it's one of those two. Because if it had been any statewide candidate, we would have nailed it both times, but not this time.
Can you talk about what petitioning, the difference? I mean, here in Indiana, we just have a vote, and it's fairly easy, and we hit it, and we've been able to maintain ballot access since 1994. What's the difference for you guys having to petition versus us having just a vote?
Well, it costs a lot of money. The first time we did it, we raised about $50,000. About 40% of that went to the guy who was raising the money. Long story there, but it cost about $30,000 every 2 years to do it. So right now we're in the third process of doing that. So you're talking now $90,000 worth that we've spent over the last 6 years trying to get it done.
Wow. Okay. And now, Rodger, were you involved at all with Gary Johnson's campaign at the state level?
No, we had somebody here who was. I was not. I was the chair at the time, so I was trying to devote myself to that. It was the first time we had ever had ballot access. I killed myself getting that ballot access. I wanted to make sure we had great candidates in place. And in 2012, we ran 15 candidates. In 2014, we ran 28 and elected 3 Libertarians to office in 2014.
That's impressive. What 3 positions did they get? Were they city council level or?
Well, one is a mayor of a town here, one is a city council, and one is a constable.
Wow, you have a mayor?
Yes, a mayor.
But no, how big's the city?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. It's small, very small. Mineral Springs, Arkansas.
Okay. And then now you do have something as well I wanted to ask you about. I wouldn't say friend because that'd be a stretch, but Brett Bittner of the Englehart Group is going to be coming down for, is it your state convention as a keynote speaker?
Well, no, we were trying to get him, but he had something scheduled for that weekend. So we're having Nick Sarwark, the chairman of the LNC.
Well,
instead.
thank God, because I mean, what bottom of what barrel did you drag when Brett Bittner's your keynote speaker?
Well, he was keynote 2 years ago and did a fantastic job. Let me tell you, he came in, he got our guys fired up, and he did a fantastic job.
Now that amazes me because I see Brett on a semi-frequent basis, and I like to say that his biggest claim to fame is that the town he's from was laid to waste by Sherman. And he tends to take offense to that. Are you one of those anti-Sherman guys?
I still think the town he was from was still pretty wasted because they elected him to a position, so they had to be pretty wasted for that.
Now, where do you stand on the War of Northern Aggression? The Civil War.
It was completely unconstitutional, immoral, and illegal.
All right, okay. Just checking. With that Southern accent, we're suspect of you, us Yankees here.
Well, you should be.
Now, Hannah, you said you were moving in the Libertarian direction, but you've never voted for a Libertarian candidate. Would you?
I don't know. I'd honestly have to think about it a lot. But at this point, I don't even know if I want to vote very much anymore. It makes me angry to vote for anybody.
Why would you not vote for a Libertarian candidate other than the fact that individual? Why would you struggle with the concept, I guess?
I wouldn't struggle with the concept. It would just mostly be struggling with the fact, is this person a viable candidate or not?
Right.
Yeah, I think we're seeing clearly now with the Mike Pence issue and RFRA going on, there are serious downsides to electing somebody that's incapable of governance.
Yeah.
That they're incapable of being an executive, of getting, just knowing how the basic functionings of government work. Like, I don't know how Mike Pence was in Congress and is so clueless about how the Indiana legislature and government apparatus works.
For the record, I disliked Mike Pence in the Republican Party before it was cool. Now it's pretty cool to dislike Mike Pence, but
so you're a Pence hipster?
Yeah, something like that.
Hannah was one of the few
anti-Pence.
one of the few Republicans that would kind of admit to me that Pence was going to be a disaster.
I saw through his bullshit really fast.
Yeah.
Well, at least in the defense of Indiana, at least your governor took a stand, whereas our governor, he didn't. He was too coward.
You might want to cancel that video.
He sent it back to the legislature. All right, so our governor said he sent it back to the legislature and said, I'm not going to take a stand on this. You guys need to clean it up and send it back to me. They finally did, and just late this afternoon, our governor finally signed it. But he didn't want to take a stand.
So what did the language adjust to? Did he or do you?
They basically made it identical to the federal RFRA law, basically adding in some language so that it is not discriminatory.
So it is a freedom empowering protection bill. Is that that seems to be the gist from the way I can describe it best, is that it doesn't allow you to discriminate, but it empowers you to make voluntary exchanges.
That's exactly right. Which, personally, I don't think we need to be creating protected classes. Like Ayn Rand said, the smallest minority is the individual.
Exactly.
Trying to create protective classes, whether it be religious people or gays or blacks or whatever, that defeats the entire purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the problem with this entire debate, and I would say go and check out Tom Wood's podcast from today, April 2nd. And he read an article from the National Review that we ought to post that kind of broke it down. It was a calm look at the law, and Woods walked through some of this, and I thought it was very astute and very good, as Tom Woods usually is. What is kind of being lost in all this is that we're arguing the philosophy of the freedom of association, and do you have a right to serve or not serve someone in your business, and we're not really actually arguing the law. We're not talking about the law or if it was necessary, and there's just a lot of libertarians who are wanting the state to protect their freedom, and that sort of seems a little unlibertarian to me. I totally agree about the protected classes, and as I said in the last podcast, you have the right to associate or discriminate when it is your personal property. When you own a property, you take the risk and you accept the reward, and it is your business. Now, if you come into my home and you act in a way that I don't like, I have the right to ask you to leave or force you to leave because you are on my property. And a business owner is the property owner, and they're accepting the risk and reward. We saw that and I said it last podcast, it's going to happen, and it did. A local TV station walked into a
bakery
a pizza restaurant.
Oh yeah, pizza restaurant.
And
Michiana area by Joe.
Yeah, up by Joe and Aria Torres.
Yes,
she's a super fan. She loves a good shout out.
She's not a fan of We're Libertarians. She's a Spangle fan.
She saves all the memes of me because they're. I don't know. So I don't know if she likes you or me more.
I doubt it.
Creepy.
Right?
That's what we do here. Okay. So they walked into this reporter. This young last reporter walked in. Little Jimmy Olsen walked in and said, "Gee Willikers, their pizza shop owner, if you were to." Be hired to serve pizza at a wedding, at a gay wedding, would you serve pizza? And they said no. Now, this shop is known to have a prayer box and is very well known around the area as a religious establishment. And they said on camera, no, we don't believe, we believe homosexuality is a choice. We wouldn't serve pizza at the gay wedding. Which I'm going to go out. Hold on. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that a gay couple's not going to have pizza at their wedding. I don't want to stereotype.
Nobody has pizza at their wedding.
But, and it was a total gotcha thing, and it was really, in hindsight, it's irresponsible. Like, the reporter had no idea what was going to happen. Who'd ever heard of this TV station? They probably have like a 4 share, so like 1,000 people watch them. And it exploded and turned into a giant internet thing. And Dana Lausch, the conservative talk radio show host, raised $140,000 and counting on a GoFundMe page for them to reopen.
As a legal defense?
Just as a here's the money. Here's the loss. You've lost business. You've had to close your doors. Because,
free market, capitalism, too big to fail.
Right. And so,
well, but that brings up an excellent point because we don't really need these laws to protect people or businesses. I mean, you're talking about Memory's Pizza, and they had to close their doors, a day or 2 days later because of all of the negative repercussion. I mean, that's exactly how the market handles these sorts of situations. We don't need laws for this. The market will do it.
Exactly. And honestly, they didn't deserve what they got. They may have a position that isn't culturally sensitive or the norm or anything that I would agree with, but they didn't deserve to have death threats and have their just people go overboard. And then the reporter got death threats and like all this misogynistic awful things were sent to her on Twitter, and it just is this whole climate around this issue and many others is just so ugly.
I hope that they don't find out that's my secondary Twitter handle.
So, Indiana amended the law today to include language that says you cannot discriminate against gays and lesbians, the LGBT community. That's not a good enough reason not to serve someone.
So that's not a justification that the religious owner can use.
Right.
Or the religious owner.
So let me ask this. If the law that was created to give religious owners the option to not serve LGBT customers, and they amended the law to say that that is not a valid concern, then what was the point of the law in the first place?
Well, now they're going to argue that was never the intent. The intent was to offer established legal protection for a business owner to mount a defense against discrimination.
See, I love to lie too, Greg.
No, I'm saying that's what they harped on, and Mike Pence harped on George Stephanopoulos, and I mean that has been they are so adamant about perception because they know they have they can't defend it with that being the starting point, let alone without it.
Right.
And I don't even think Mike Pence is a good how a guy had a radio show and isn't good enough at presenting his opinion in a compelling narrative is beyond me.
Right.
Definitely can't ask him yes or no questions anymore.
Oh,
explain that.
Just watch George Stephanopoulos when he was on there.
Right.
That's basically all you have to do.
He's a squirmy little feller.
I was like waiting for him to go like Tom Cruise and be like, "You're being very glib, George. You're being very glib."
Well, the point of the law was to strengthen that conservative Christian base and to get them to vote for these people. That was the point of it.
Yeah.
No matter what they say, it was to get those Christian conservatives to vote for them.
Yep, they're still a dominant voting bloc, so you got to
then
put up with them for now.
They now hate Mike Pence, so we're good.
Yep. And yes, Hannah, actually, if you wouldn't mind bringing that up, would you please read?
Sure.
Because Mike Pence, arguably until this happened, there was no greater Christian conservative in the state.
Totally.
You'd be hard pressed to find one. And then the way he has handled himself here by not sticking to his guns or not coming out and being like, I made a huge mistake, I'm a real apology. He has put himself in purgatory with the Republican Party.
Right.
And now, this is my favorite thing I've heard all day. This is a comment about Mike Pence, but I bet you anything someone that made phone calls for him for governor.
Oh, most likely. So it says, Pence is a weak man. He let the General Assembly run him over in first year. In second year, the Assembly did not allow the public to vote on the definition of marriage, despite Pence's call to do so. Now this. Pence is a nice, sweet Christian man, but this has proven that he is not a fighter whatsoever. I wonder if pushed, would he deny Christ? He most certainly denied the people of faith today.
Wow.
Ouch. And where was that from?
It's from Facebook.
Okay.
It was a Facebook comment. It was well written.
Right. No,
for that position, and it was an excellent point.
Was it Micah's Facebook?
Yeah, it was a comment on Micah's Facebook.
All right. Micah Clark is he's a well-known, you just look up Micah, Micah, Clark,
Was he the one in that picture that is the bestiality guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Not the bestiality lobbyist. He compares homosexual marriage to bestiality.
Right, yeah.
Although I can neither confirm or deny the part about the bestiality lobbying. I don't know. I've never asked him.
And Eric Miller and Kurt Smith are two guys. Kurt Smith and I were actually on Abdul's radio show back when I was on WXNT, and I was arguing against the gay marriage amendment, and he was arguing for the amendment, and he hated my guts. I mean, he was so pissed off at me because I was making points that he couldn't refute because I was arguing from a purely libertarian standpoint, which is government doesn't belong in marriage and shouldn't be discriminating against individuals who want to make their own choices. And he couldn't refute that because how can he refute that? How can you deny liberty, especially if you're from the small government side?
But if it weren't for the government, we'd be able to have interracial marriages. Oh, wait, sorry, that was 50 years ago. Sorry.
Right. And that really is what it comes down to. I just kind of read between the lines on a lot of the comments on my stuff, on the Wall Facebook page, and I see people commenting where I know their personal beliefs because it's Facebook, so you're friends with these people, and you know what they believe about gay marriage, and you see them arguing for this law, and it just smacks of bigotry and discrimination, and
well, look,
I just don't like gays.
You can't forget that the government has over and over been responsible for more discrimination than anybody ever has. I mean, from slavery to Jim Crow, interracial marriages, from banning gays in the military to creating protected classes so they can discriminate against gays. I mean, this is not anything new. The same arguments and the same Bible verses we're hearing today are the same ones that we heard a few decades ago that led the former governor of Arkansas to block the entrance of 9 young black people to go to school at a white school in Little Rock in 1957. I mean, we make fun of these people now, and the way our youth are growing up being pro-LGBT, it'll take much less than a few decades for people to make fun of this today. I mean, if my 8-year-old gets it, why doesn't the generation ahead of ours get it? I don't understand.
He doesn't have enough money to donate to political candidates.
Right.
That's essentially honestly, I feel like gay marriage and abortion and guns are the only things that fundraise within the Republican Party anymore. Yeah. I mean, granted, they always have, and not anymore, but that is like their last beacon of hope monetarily. And so it all goes back to what we talked about last week, that 2016 in the primary is going to be the race for the evangelical in the GOP.
Totally. So it's just been it is a confusing topic for libertarians of all varieties. I find myself very... I'm not conflicted. I mean, I know exactly what I believe. I know that I think Ben Swan's article was fantastic, which you found, which is let's make everybody happy. Just make get rid of marriage licensing. Let anybody get married that wants to get married in any place that they want to get married, with the exception of the people where they don't want them to get married. For instance, a church that doesn't want to marry gay couples should not be forced to do so. Just total freedom of association and voluntary exchanges. And for the life of me, I don't understand what's wrong with that. Make sure that people of conscience are protected. Make sure that LGBT couples are rights are protected.
Full protection of the law and access to the rights.
Right.
Well, but so you're still talking about splitting up those rights. I mean, everybody should have those rights. It doesn't matter what groups you belong to. I mean, if I want to discriminate against gingers in my own shop, then I won't serve. I won't serve Spangle. If I don't want to serve gays, then I won't serve Greg Lynn.
Listen here, you bald-headed
Did he call
motherfucker.
me gay?
Yeah, he just called you gay.
Is there something wrong with that, Roger? Please explain why you're anti-serving gays.
No, I'm just saying if I were. I mean, if you don't want to serve Canadians, well, I mean, who does? But that's beside the point.
No, I get your point. But that is, it goes right back to when Rand Paul first won election, was on Rachel Maddow, and she asked him point blank if he supported the Civil Rights Act. Our position, even if you do the best job in the world presenting it in a concise, clear, short, or brief manner, it still can be misportrayed as racist.
Sure, and it was with Rand. He was dead on. He made the right call there. I certainly support what he said there, but it does sound harsh. It does sound wrong if you don't explain it from that individual rights perspective.
Yes, correct. And that's the danger of this. And ultimately, this law with the updated language here in Indiana, honestly, I don't think that offers anyone any more protection than it existed under the law prior to.
Totally.
It had no benefit, and now not only did it have no benefit, it drugged the governor and the Indiana Republican legislators into a national quagmire mess, and now they don't get any of the maybe they'll get some fundraising off it, but they have just lost so much political capital that it may be devastating.
I'll talk about the political fallout in a minute, but the Center for American Progress, so take it for what it's worth, estimated in a study that Indiana lost $258 million in revenue this week just because of this bill. And for a governor that prides himself on supposedly wanting being pro-business, that's not very pro-business. So this has been a fruitless, pointless exercise from the very beginning. All you did was make the very people you were trying to protect. If I'm a gay rights group, I'm going to get the Christian business pages and just start hitting Christian businesses in the state.
Well, then the Disciples of Christ decided not to have their convention here.
Right. So
he can't win with anybody.
So it's just been an exercise in folly, and really, I think what happened after talking to a lot of people this week, just to kind of expand on what we gave you a comprehensive look of how politics works here in Indiana regarding this issue. But Pence supposedly, was looking at running in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina in the early primaries and just kind of floating a trial balloon, making connections, meeting fundraisers, and basically doing what we said in the last episode, which is just kind of trying to see if he could get a VP nod or raise his name ID for a future election, and then come back and run and win governor. And that is completely closed. I mean, like Hillary's womb closed. And it is not going to happen.
Oh, man.
And it is so bad here in Indiana that the State Central Committee is rumored for the Republican Party, which the State Central Committee is made up of district reps and the people that they're the governing body of the state party. They're the ones who, the sitting governor recommend someone to be the chairman of the state GOP and then the state central committee picks that person.
It's like advise and consent in the Senate. Like,
yes.
They have a candidate and then...
And so the state GOP, Pence made his pick. His replacement is a guy named Jeff Cardwell, former city county councilor, and now head of the religious initiatives office here in Indiana. By all accounts, I've only met him a couple times. By all accounts, an absolutely wonderful guy, very nice guy. Definitely a Mike Pence true believer, one of his closest advisors. Certainly agrees with him on this issue, but I will say personally, I've never heard a bad word said about the guy. And he's an excellent fundraiser. He is now doing a ton of damage control, hiring advisors to lobby the State Central Committee. and there's a very real concern amongst the Pence administration that he may not get reappointed, and that they are looking at appointing a guy named Jim Kittle of Kittle's Furniture to come back, who built the state GOP to what it is, by raising a ton of money from fellow business owners, and then recruiting another candidate. And some have kind of floated the idea that Bill Osterly, who was Mitch Daniels' 2004 campaign manager and is now the CEO of Angie's List, that he might want to run for governor. He put out a statement today saying Pence didn't go far enough. So they may be recruiting a different gubernatorial candidate. Now, all of this is total conjecture, but that's how bad it is. A sitting governor is being not so silently overstepped by the state central committee and his own people from all corners.
This is music to my ears because in 2011 he was God to Indiana. He was like God on earth. Like nobody
Mike's
could.
coming back from D.C. to save us.
That was basically what it was. And now like he has fallen down so hard, it just makes me so happy.
Well, an empty suit usually folds when beaten with a stick.
You didn't have to beat it with a stick; you had to blow on it, and it fell over.
I mean, there were a lot of libertarians in the state, a lot of Republican Liberty Caucus Republicans who were just like, "This is the great libertarian hope." He in this state was Rand Paul before Rand Paul existed, is how people viewed him, and that is all gone. And you heard Hannah read from the True Believers that they don't trust him anymore.
Yeah.
So it just is interesting fallout from what, in our view, was a totally unnecessary piece of legislation.
I really want to go to his church this week and see if his minister addresses it in his sermon.
I want to see if he's there this week.
He's canceling appearances. We have something here in Indiana called Lincoln Day dinners. And
no, he isn't.
He's canceling Lincoln Day dinner appearances.
I heard that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So right now,
He's scared.
Every county has a fundraising dinner called a Lincoln Day dinner where they all get together, raise money, and all the politicians that are running for major office in the district come to the county and speak at these dinners. And there's 92 counties, and they go to all of them, and then they go to the state convention. And that's kind of how you build consensus going into the convention. Democrats have the Jefferson-Jackson Day dinners. We tried to start Thomas Paine dinners, or we started Bill of Rights Day dinners. It never really took off because the Libertarians don't like to pay for things. But
amen to that.
Yeah, he's now canceling appearances because he doesn't want to go stand in front of local Indiana Republicans and answer directly for all this.
That right there says he's not fit for office.
Matt Tolley in the Indianapolis Star, his latest column was breathtaking. I mean, I printed out like 15 copies, threw them on the floor, and rolled around in them. Yes, yes.
But were you naked when you did that?
There's very few times when I have clothes on.
If your body's covered in maple syrup, are you really naked?
Right.
Oh, pancakes from Cracker Barrel sounds so good right now. Why did you have to do that? If Cracker Barrel delivered, it'd be a Fortune 500 company. I swear to God.
Isn't Cracker Barrel a religious company, though?
Yeah.
Cracker Barrel's right across the street.
So, Cracker Barrel is across the street. Why do you think I'm like 800 pounds?
Well,
shut up. You're supposed to say no. You look good. So, all right.
crickets.
So here's a couple quotes from this Matt Tully. Matt Tully's the political columnist for the Indianapolis Star. In recent days, Fortune magazine listed former Governor Mitch Daniels among the world's 50 greatest leaders. At the same time, Pence, the man who has followed Daniels into office, has once again been exposed as a stunningly ineffective leader. When you have to clarify a horribly damaging piece of legislation that you race to sign, when you dodge a question on national TV about whether discrimination is legal in your state, when you deal your state a crushing economic blow, when you seem incapable of understanding the role you have played in creating this mess, well, that makes it clear you are not in the right job. Diminishing this as a perception problem, as Pence did repeatedly during a news conference Tuesday, was an example of leadership negligence, and it crystallized a thought that I've had for some time. He is simply not suited to be an executive branch leader. It is not his skill set. He is a talker. He is not a leader. And that is something that I said every day in 2012, and nobody listened. So that is just how bad it is on the ground here in Indiana. And I think it really is a huge problem for the Republican Party when they continue to elect these ideologues who are long on talk, who are long on talk radio talking points, but they really have no philosophical foundation. They really have no executive experience. They've never run anything. As much as we libertarians would like there to be no government, I would like you, while there is government, to run it effectively and not cost me more tax dollars.
Yeah, do no harm.
Right.
I mean, if there's going to be a government, it needs to be there for why government exists, and that is only to protect our rights. And that's it. That's the only reason government should ever exist. If we went back to that framework, back to what the Constitution said, I may not even be an anarcho-capitalist today, because we wouldn't have to worry about the government, telling us how much our toilet should flush.
Yeah, the problem that I've had of anarchy versus minarchy, and we've talked about this on past problems, and I kind of fleshed this out with Walter Block, if you go back and listen to that episode. The problem that I've had with anarchy is the courts and police and criminal justice. And the problem I have with minarchism is the government, its mission creep, is that it eventually winds up here. And so I guess I'd probably rather have the criminal justice problems than I would this.
Well, if you go back and listen to episodes 6 and 7 of The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com, I actually go into the police and the courts and things like that. But I urge everybody to go look up an article called Chaos Theory by Robert Murphy. It's a brilliant piece. It's on the internet for free. It's 60 pages or so, but it's absolutely brilliant. Or just read Murray Rothbard for New Liberty. I mean, he really gets deep into that courts and police and defense and all of those things that most libertarians who are minarchists say, well, but what about that? And those are pieces that really brought me over that line from minarchy to anarchy.
So I have a quick question before we kind of move on from this, and we've been not letting Rodger talk like we did to Joe, but so I want to give him a chance to kind of finish up here. How do we know what is and what is not a Christian business? And I think part of the problem with this law and this whole discussion is that anybody who says, and I thought Glenn Beck actually had an interesting take on this. He said, listen, if you just want to discriminate against people and then claim it's because you're a Christian, no, that's not right. That's not allowed. That's not legal. But if you are truly a person of faith and it is very clear and obvious that over the years that you have this stand, like these people with the prayer box, that is a definite sign. Who is going to evaluate? Are the courts now going to evaluate who is and who is not a good Christian? And secondly, to these Christian bakers who want to deny service, are you baking cakes for couples that have been divorced and now are marrying other people? Because Hannah can tell you and Rodger can tell you, Christian scripture, very literal reading, makes absolutely no distinction, and it actually is much tougher on divorce. Jesus spoke against divorce. He never spoke against sodomy or homosexuality.
That's right.
Paul did that in Romans 1, 2?
Romans 1.
Romans 1, and Leviticus talks about it. But other than that, it never talks about being gay as a sin. It talks about sodomy.
Sodomy, right.
Yeah, butt sex, for those of you who don't know what sodomy is.
And Chris knows all about it.
And I think everyone in this room knows all about it. Did you just... Listen here, Rodger. Rodger,
but,
hold on, Rodger.
You talk about how we can tell the Christians. I mean, we could go back and start making the Christians all wear Jesus fish on their shirts, kind of like the Nazis did. Obviously, I'm kidding. But, the difference here is the businesses who discriminate against gays or blacks or whatever the case may be, they're discriminating. Yeah, they're bigots. And yeah, we should boycott them. But what's more egregious? Somebody who discriminates against somebody that they may not want to associate with, or somebody who wants to use the force of government to force that business to associate with them. I mean, using the force of government is absolutely more egregious. And the people who would use that force of government should be boycotted and ridiculed just as much as those businesses who don't want to associate with them.
It really is reprehensible that people want to use government force to plan outcomes, and I, as much as I'm beating up on my fellow Christians and business owners and saying that I would serve people, I really have I have more distaste and more disgust for these activists, or just even if they're not activists, they're just regular people who just say, listen, I was offended when this business owner wouldn't serve me. And wouldn't violate their conscience, so I'm going to use violence against them by using the government. I mean, it's just really, they just offended you. You're using violence in this form of suing them and wrecking their lives.
basically what they're saying, though, is they're saying that they want the government to threaten to kick the shit out of you if you don't take their business. I mean, look, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. I'll boycott you. But using the threat of government force to come and beat the shit out of you or take you to jail, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of, covered that. Anything from the two of you that...
I just have two comments based on how this discussion's evolved. Is it's so funny to hear, I don't want to say Christian slandering, but it's very easy to say, oh, those backwoods crazy Christians. And there's no political repercussions or very few, from our listenership, from anyone outside of the hardcore Christian right. But when we talk about activists, we never hardly ever mention they're gay. We say the opposition. We say...
That's a good point.
The other side. It's really funny to me how no one ever addresses it head on.
I am not gay, but I am a Christian, so I guess there's a little more freedom to be tougher on my own people.
And I don't mean you. I mean,
no, I totally
this
do
entire, the entire online discussion. I mean, the talk radio discussion. Obviously, Dana Lash, Rush, those guys, they all, they are very adamant about supporting.
Well, obviously, you're in the tolerant north, because down here in the south, all the Facebook posts I'm seeing are down on the gays. I mean, it's all about the gays.
That's true. So it's very,
it must be a northern
specific,
versus southern thing.
Ours is that way, but it is much more cloaked. I mean, there's definitely,
it's covert racism.
Right.
It's underground racism.
It's microaggressions.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Hannah?
All I've got to say is Jesus taught love, and these people aren't loving very much at all, and that's more harmful to the Christian cause than it is to anything.
I totally
Amen.
Agree. I totally agree. I think from a Christian perspective, it is more. You have a better chance of witnessing the love of Christ to a gay couple by making them a cake than you do by saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to make you a cake."
Like, the thing is, so you don't want to take their money, fine, make it for them for free. That says a lot more than, that just says a lot more than you being like, oh, well, I'm not going to bake a cake for you.
At the same time, I don't fault people of conscience that don't want to do it. I understand it, but I don't. I personally would not behave in that way.
No.
Well, and neither would I. I mean, if I had a business, anybody who wanted to come to my business to give me money is welcome. As a matter of fact, if you go to the lavaflow.com/support, you can you can donate to the show, and I don't discriminate against your dollars.
You son of a bitch.
I say we send Rodger Paxton a cake.
A gay cake.
When my testicles finally drop, I'm going to mold cake around them.
Can we make a cake topper like the one you had of Mike Pence and Rick Santorum?
Yeah, I think that can be done. I think that can be done.
That
Maybe
was awesome.
Mike Pence as a brony would be a little bit more appropriate.
Oh God, that was even better.
That was amazing.
Although I'm just as guilty of it as well. Like I end up supporting the individuals who want to use the force of the state. But I have a different way of going about it than they do. But I end up being on that side and lending a sympathetic ear to their position. And it is, for me, that just watching these debates happen is baffling. Because, one, it isn't Christian to turn them away. That would, foundationally be against it. Two, don't ever use the Old Testament to justify your position. Like
Ever. There's
Preach it.
nothing. If you were a Bible-believing Christian, there's the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, and if you're arguing from the Old Covenant, you're an idiot and you don't understand your own faith. But a lot of times I see people that are arguing the Old Testament Leviticus stuff. They are trying to perform a gotcha procedure on the Christian or the, or the conservative.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because they don't understand what the other side believes. They just want to, they've read it on Think Progress and want to smear the Christians.
They can't wait to sentence the person to death that works Sundays.
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's interesting to me, though, that how this is being talked about here is so different than how I would have anticipated, because it has been an echo chamber of Christian character attacks and slander and a negative connotation when talking about their position, and it'd be not impossible, but you have to search high and low to find the opposition even to be identified as LGBT organizers, supporters, and fundraisers.
Sure. And it totally is the case. I mean, we've said in both of our podcasts, like, it's activists getting the blue pages, the Christian blue pages, and trying to find a victim. And, the other part of it that drives me crazy, speaking of the word victim, the victim mentality of the Christian right, and Mike Pence himself is just unbelievably sickening. Oh my. Is unbelievably sickening.
They dropped.
Yeah.
He was tired of us.
Rodger gave up. He quit. He quit Liberty. So I just,
Don't donate to him.
You have guys like Micah Clark and Eric Miller here locally crying the victim, and I bet they have raised more money in the last week and a half than they have in the last year.
Oh, they are
combined.
the new Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton.
Completely. The right and Rush Limbaugh and all these talk show hosts used to blame Jesse Jackson, the victim mentality. It is, oh my God, it is so unbelievable to watch these people turn into that.
If you live long enough, everyone becomes the villain.
Right.
That is the lesson. And so ultimately, it's now behind us. It's law. It's signed. Now we just get tons of opposing court rulings and legal interpretations that'll mess it up even more. So luckily we have that to look forward to. But I think this segues pretty well into our general hatred of Facebook manners and commentary manners across the internet platforms.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I've been thinking about writing an article the last couple weeks called "Why I Don't Read Your Facebook Comments."
Wow, I hope you edit that out.
Yeah, that was pretty loud.
We actually didn't record any of that first part. We're really sorry, Rodger. Are you okay with that? We're just going to do this last bit.
Yeah,
I remember that happened.
Hour and 20 minutes with that we don't have it. We're gonna have to do it over.
You're kidding me.
No. April Fools.
Oh.
It's April 2nd, you idiots.
Oh.
Well, why would you do an April Fool's on April Fool's?
Yeah, that's not fun. We're progressives up here in the north.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing is, I knew that you guys have done that in the past, so I just knew that.
Don't say you guys. Chris Spangle has done that in the past.
I am solely responsible for all technical problems. Right. I am solely responsible for not getting the stupid podcast up on time.
Yeah, but I'm going to blame this on my wife. She's in there watching Netflix while I'm trying to use some bandwidth. It's all her fault.
Well, actually, my laptop, for whatever reason, has disconnected from the Wi-Fi a couple times today. So that was actually my fault.
Because it's a Mac?
Okay.
It's a Mac. That's right. The best.
Well, then I'll apologize to my wife.
You don't think that it's possible the NSA's hacked your Mac?
Probably. All those memes.
He has to go apologize to his wife. Hold on. Can you take the recorder with you? We want to listen.
That's not happening.
Do you lay in the bed across that bed that we're looking at, just you and your chest hair and go, honey, I'm sorry. And I'm about to show you how sorry I am.
Oh, God.
You have developed this scenario mentally much more than I would have imagined.
Thought a lot about
A little creepy.
Mm-hmm. That
I
wasn't
don't know what to
just
say.
the first time
I'm
that's occurred.
speechless for the first time in my life.
I'm sorry. I guess the gay has just caught me. I've been caught by the gay.
And this is what Mike Pence has been arguing this whole time.
He was born that way.
FYI.
Well, Mike Pence knew that he would want to discriminate against Chris Spangle. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, I believe it.
Smart move.
All right, so before we reconnected Rodger Paxton of the Lava Flow podcast, we were just about to. I said that I've been thinking about writing a blog post, and so what I do is I think about writing blog posts and then I never do for WeLibertarians.com. I have the title, but I don't have it written out. I kind of know what I want to say, so I'm going to say it here because it's easier than writing. Why I don't read your Facebook comments anymore.
But please read this post.
Right.
And comments.
Yeah. I just, I kind of was exasperated today, and I got into the chat, and I got into the exclusive We Are Libertarians think tank educational group that we've created, that if you want to join...
The Spangle Institute for Advanced Libertarian Studies.
That's right. There's about 40 other We Are Libertarians fans in the group that you can join and chat with, and we share the memes that... no, you're making a face, Hannah. Thank you. They're very nice
Are you
people.
in there?
No, actually, I'm not.
No, we won't allow her in.
Okay.
I would probably want to punch somebody by the end of the day.
No, it's
Each
actually...
day.
It's fun.
It's
Is it
wonderful.
fun?
It is wonderful.
Everybody's nice, and they like the
Okay.
memes that Greg couldn't post because they were too bad.
Okay. Maybe you should put me in there.
I'll put you in there.
Okay.
All right.
As long
but
as you're not arguing and yelling at each
There's
other.
no arguing.
no,
Okay, good.
It's sharing news stories and making fun of Spangle. It's
Okay.
wonderful.
right.
Sounds good.
And
I've
then-
never been a utopian until I joined this group. Now I think it might be achievable.
It's just if everyone likes me, then we can all get along. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
yeah.
So I just posted in there, exasperated, saying, you know what? I just can't take face. Maybe because this is such a complicated issue. I don't know if I'm explaining myself incorrectly. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong to not get my message across effectively, because there's so many layers here. There are libertarians who are like, listen, LGBT rights and erase marriage, and there's more of the left libertarians, and then there's the right libertarians who are more, we've got to defend freedom of association, and really this bill...
Donate to Ted Cruz.
Yeah, this bill really is about neither of that at the end of the day, and does not do any of that. Especially if you listen to like Tom Woods' podcast from April 2nd today. But people have dug in their positions, and it's like we said last time. When you use the violence of the state, when you use the government to decide these issues, or when you use the government to try and central plan your own vision of society like Mike Pence and conservatives do and gay rights groups do, and people on the left and right tend to do, you end up having everybody pissed off, and everybody's mad, and everybody feels the need to run to their positions that most closely resembles their own and defend that left or right position. And we've talked about it time and time again, a phrase that Maya coined, the tyranny of the binary. You know, I'm on the right, so I've got to hate the left. I hate good, so I'm going to be evil. Or I'm for John Wayne, so I've got to hate the Indians. And it's this idea that there is no gray, there is no middle ground, there is no discussion, there is only right and wrong, and my opinion is right and you're wrong, and I will do anything I can to win the Facebook argument. And I hate that. I absolutely hate it. And I think if you've learned one thing about us, we enjoy discussing these things at length. We enjoy going into every detail. And we don't assume that we are always right. I know that, man, especially lately, I'm like, Greg, tell me what to think. Because I guess I get it, but explain this to me. I need this podcast to help me learn about what I believe. You know, not because I don't believe it, but I need to have someone help me figure out how to verbalize it. You know, and is there existing research out there that correlates to what I believe? And I think that's why you listen to this podcast as a listener, is because you know in your heart what's right and you know what you believe, but you can't just quite express it the right way yet. And that's part of why we do this, is because we're all kind of learning together and we're advancing. Libertarianism is a practice. It is not something that you just say, I've adopted these sets of principles and that's it. You have to kind of like study it and practice it and argue it, and you grow over time. And you become more and more libertarian, and then I think you just become an anarchist because you're so sick of everyone else's shit.
Well, that's exactly why I started the Lava Flow. I mean, I've, obviously been a libertarian for many, many years, but the research and the writing that I do in this show helps me to better articulate. And a lot of the things we're talking about tonight, some of the things I've said are things that I've written for my next show. It helps me articulate and understand these things better. I spend hours and hours researching before every episode so that I can make sure that I understand the position well enough to explain it to somebody else.
Yeah, writing is one of the best forms of thinking.
Absolutely. And then also, I think the best way to learn something yourself is to teach it. And that's what this does, I think, for both of us. And then, the various individuals that come on, explaining yourself, thinking it out, trying to condense it, and do it in a clear manner. That's the most difficult thing to do, is to, when you're teaching, you're basically defending it and then trying to help someone take those first steps to sort of grasp on. And don't be afraid when you're doing it, and don't be say, well, I don't know libertarianism well enough to actually explain it to somebody. I need to go listen to Tom Woods. No, you need to ask yourself questions about what you think about starting at the voluntary exchange as your basic principle and build your society out from there. And then that mental exercise will help you clarify what you believe and give you a framework of for analyzing any political, either political or philosophical debate you encounter.
Yeah, if you go to wearelibertarians.com, we actually have, just 3 or 4 simple steps, a ton of videos that just explain the basic libertarian principles, the path to libertarianism, those big ideas that are just essential to understanding and evaluating the rest of everything. But as libertarians, as anarchists, as voluntarists, as agorists, as, Pensatarians or conservative Republicans that listen to the show, I don't presume that, I'm sure we have Democrats that listen.
I hope not.
Greg wants to put you in a
Democrats.
camp. Yeah, he wants to. He's building a FEMA camp for them.
Oh, yes.
He's putting Hannah in charge.
At this point, based on everything that the Republicans are doing in Arkansas legislature, I would give anything to have our Democrats back in office, frankly. I mean, I am so sick of the Republicans, it's not even funny.
That's true.
Agreed.
If I have to choose, I'll take a conservative Democrat over a conservative Republican.
I'll give you that.
John Gregg was the Speaker of the House of Indiana and would have been a more effective governor than Pence, and he would have been as fiscally conservative as Mike Pence has been, because Mike Pence really hasn't done anything.
I know one thing: he'd have been able to find his office,
right?
And that's an improvement.
So I think when you are an armchair,
a slacktivist,
when you are an armchair political scientist, and I don't necessarily consider myself that. I would consider. I mean, for years, half jokingly, I wrote on my IRS tax statement that my occupation was political scientist, just to kind of be and it made my accountant laugh. But I really was working in the business of practicing political science. Rodger, you do that in Arkansas with the Libertarian Party of Arkansas.
Of course.
Greg and I spend a tremendous amount of time studying and reading and have years of experience of talking and practicing this stuff. And we're fortunate to have this vehicle and to have those experiences. Obviously, I'm not a paid professional anymore, but I do play one on podcasts. So there is a little bit of elitism, I think, with Greg and I. Greg likes to call himself a libertarian elitist.
Oh, absolutely. I have absolutely no time for populist and I get to have my voice too. No, you don't. Unless you're informed, I don't care what your opinion is.
And so it is just really frustrating to me to read comments on our own Facebook page, on my Facebook page personally, on news sites. I mean, the worst thing you can ever do to yourself as a critically thinking individual is to go and read the comments on a website, on a news article, or on a Facebook page for a news site. I mean, people are so ignorant. And I mean that in the way that they just don't know. They don't care what they don't know.
Exposure.
Okay.
They're so ignorant. And for me, what ignorant means is that you just aren't even willing to expose yourself to competing ideas, competing philosophies, the other sides. You create, and I talked about it today, information silos that are reinforcing, that actually harden your political philosophy, your moral philosophy, whatever it is, and it stops you from encountering anything that could possibly open your eyes to better understanding a situation, a topic, a belief system, and it's devastating. And it's why you're seeing the polarization of the United States. Period.
And so what I really want, and I think the people who listen to the show that get it, and I think you listening, you get it, and you understand it.
You are the libertarian elite.
Of course. But you're thinking people who like this show because we don't come at you and say, we know the truth, and this is exactly what you need to believe. We're a little more questioning, and we're not perfect, and you shouldn't take us as the definitive guide of what a libertarian thinks. We jokingly call me dear leader and the president of all libertarians, but that is an inside joke that we really haven't exposed you to. But in my mind, I allow it and don't say to Greg, please stop. You're hurting my dating life.
Well, there are benefits.
You're hating my life. You're hurting my dating life.
It's called an ego.
But it's also a little bit of mocking of the absolute truth teller that it comes from the conservative talk radio sphere and even in the libertarian sphere. There are people who just think that they are the definitive voice of liberty, and if you don't go to their website and listen to their podcast, then you're just an idiot. And if you post something from Reason, they're wrong and they're not libertarian enough. And it just
in that
very
frame, if you want the definitive voice of libertarianism, go to the lavaflow.com.
I'm going to beep that.
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
But
you're like the P.T. Barnum of liberty. You know that?
I'm not quite sure how to take that. He was very successful.
No, that's it. I mean it. You know,
I'm not afraid to give my opinion when I don't fully know everything, and I'm honest and dare I say humble enough to be corrected when I'm wrong. And Greg is that way, and everybody who comes on the We Are Libertarians podcast and the people in our network and the people that I've tried to invite on the show are that way as well, except Maya.
But she is a philosophical conclusion.
Right.
So, for her, she has arrived at her endpoint, and she can talk. It's just tough for her to talk about any practical or pragmatic approach because that prolongs and extends the existence of a state.
Right. And I think that is what a lot of our best listeners have in common with us as well. That's what I found in the group that we started 2 or 3 weeks ago, just to kind of gather some of those people that aren't going to be a dick to us and will give us stories and say, hey, did you see this that we might have missed? And it's just kind of fun to chat with people that, you listening in the car, we build a relationship with you and we want to know who you are. We want to meet you. We want to talk to you. So I guess I want an OP's Bill of Rights, an original poster's Bill of Rights, because the commenters have ruined digital publishing. I'm not saying that if you ever comment on a Facebook post, on our page or any other page, that you're running Facebook. I'm talking about the people who have taken something I've posted because I either find it interesting and I think it's a different point of view that people ought to be exposed to, but I may not necessarily agree with it. A trait that still is held on from my reportage days, where, listen, I don't necessarily agree with this, but I think it's an interesting fact that you ought to know. Or I'm not trying to push an agenda here. I want you to see this thing, and maybe that is something, everything is kind of curated through my lens, but my Greg lens. But it is not it is not a definitive statement of what We Are Libertarians or all libertarians think. And so much of what I have seen through this debate that I am getting on our Facebook page, that Greg is getting, that other people, I think, and you see this with Julie Borowski and other libertarian figures that are, not associated with Mises. And Lord knows we love the Mises Institute. I use them all the time. I go there every day. But there is definitely amongst followers, there is definitely they are right and you are wrong type mentality amongst that organization. Acolytes, I guess.
It sounds like, and Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like Chris is saying that he got butthurt over somebody telling him he was wrong on Facebook, and so this is his way of getting back to that.
No, here's why I'm butthurt.
His Jimmy's got rustled, and now he wants retribution.
What Chris wants is for Facebook to go like YouTube and be able to turn off comments, it sounds like.
There's a very good reason why we don't allow comments on WeareLibertarians.com. It's because we don't have to have them, and they contribute nothing. If you go to our Facebook page and you read the article that I was most recently posted about the state losing $258 million from the cap, the Center for American Progress as a raw story, and you just read the comments, and it's just people are telling me what we are supposed to. Like, there's some sort of mystery language. I posted an article, and I said the point of the post was, I bet this makes Republicans think twice about pursuing gay marriage amendments and other LGBT discrimination language. That's what I meant. What people read was, you're a liberal, you're helping the liberal media, you guys are just Democrats, you're no better than Bill Maher, and like all this like stupid shit where you're just like, that has nothing to do with what the post was about and nothing that I said, and it's not helpful, and you're just smearing what we believe because you didn't go and take the time to listen to episode 102. You're not going to take the time to listen to this. You're not reading all the other posts. You're not thinking about the context. You're just not thinking. And it's not every commenter. It is just some of the commenters. And it is generally people who are just kind of these conservative libertarians who are really not libertarians. They're just Republicans that want to be in the cool libertarian club.
They want low taxes, and they want to pretend that social conservatism laws that exist as right now are never going to be repealed. And they are never going to have to shape or change their opinion from that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that social conservatism promotes a type of economic benefit that we should be encouraging, like the family unit and blah, 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 blah. And so that is their, but now all of a sudden they're libertarian though, because I don't hate gays quite as much.
They're probably anti-abortion too.
That's true. That's true. Not that libertarians have a well fleshed out position on abortion either, but what seems to be out there, and I don't know when this happened, but from what I could gathered on the internet is everyone is on high alert on Facebook or any commentary social media platform with user-generated contributions or user-generated content. There's a victim mentality. Everyone's on high alert. Everyone cannot wait to be offended. Everyone cannot wait to bring the people that they're in their little or their chat group with, or they've liked someone's Rick Perry's page, and say, "Hey guys, let's all go descend on this."
Right.
Let's all team up.
You're absolutely right, but engaging in those sorts of exercises are important for many reasons. I mean, number one, it helps you understand your position better, like we talked about while we do these shows and things like that. But number two, you are not reaching the person that you're disagreeing with. Kill them with logic. And there are reasonable lurkers who are reading those posts and saying, that is logical. That makes perfect sense. Now, there's probably a lot that disagree with you too, but you are reaching some people, even though you're not reaching the person you're, battling against.
But I guess my question is, why do I have to take all the time in the day to argue with these people who, like here's one comment. I'm with Richard and Armando. Libertarians are supposed to be in favor of personal choice and responsibility, not in favor of the type of mandatory compliance that is pushed by the statist post. It is their business. They reserve the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason. And Nathan Olmstead, God bless him, listener of the week, my favorite new listener, says, just curious how you think they went full statist by pointing out that the GOP is stupid and there are consequences to their actions, which was the point of the post. There's consequences to your stupid actions. And somehow my least favorite listeners of the week, although they don't listen, Robert Logan Pope, who got 37 likes on that comment, Richard Light, and Amadeo Drysdale. We Are Libertarians is against business freedom now. It got 13 likes. I have to take time out of my day to defend a negative when I never said in the post that we agree with that we are against business freedom, whatever that is. Like, I can't argue against somebody who has
businesses are so free they don't have to apply for a business license from the state.
Yeah, and if you get a business and you get the protection of the state that is built into what a corporation is, a state-created thing that offers protection, why shouldn't your protection be pulled if you don't agree with everything that the state has to say?
They gave you an artificial layer of protection in order to promote entrepreneurship and risk-taking, and then you're going to go, my business freedom, and complain when there's conditions attached to it?
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
And so I guess, Rodger, my point is, it just seems like at what point, I guess I don't understand how much time I should spend on this. How much time I should spend correcting the ignorance of people that say they're libertarians. They're supposed to be with us.
Well, and they are, but you have to understand that we are in the minority. And I hate to use the term philosophically pure because I'm going to get a lot of shit over being a purist, but at the same time, there's something to be said for that. There's a lot of people out there who are on different parts of that journey than we are. I think I'm at a different point than you are, and you're at a different point than I am. There's a lot of people who just heard that term libertarian, and they say, ooh, smaller government, I like that. Yeah, I don't really hate the gays. Okay, I'm a libertarian, even though they're really not. I think separating the term libertarian from the term, people who follow the non-aggression principle. I know that's a big term, but still, I think that there's a big difference there. The term libertarian has been co-opted. It has been, co-opted by Glenn Beck. It's been co-opted by these people who are not truly libertarians, just like the word liberal was 40 years ago. We were the classic liberals, and now, somebody co-opted that term. It's the same thing that's happening now, but we still have to try to help those people make that journey to pure, for lack of a better word, libertarianism.
Well, like Hannah's a new libertarian. Well, she's ish. Now, you feel comfortable saying that around us and in our little social, our little information silo, libertarian.
This is a safe place, Hannah. Tell us where freedom touched you.
But
in your heart, that's where.
What would you do, assuming let's say you went to one of these Lincoln Day dinners that are so popular here. Would you readily identify yourself that way?
I would readily just shut up and sit down.
But I mean, if someone were to ask you, where you philosophically lie, or what's your political philosophy?
I would probably tell them I'm definitely leaning libertarian.
Yeah, and see, for just saying that
would get me thrown out.
Well, in India, yeah, but it also means that in the national narrative, the libertarian word has become, so much more popular, and then it also has lacked a clear definition because eventually, I feel like they're going to have to define it as statist or not.
Well, I disagree with you there. It has had a firm definition for a very long time, just like the word liberal did before it.
Oh,
people have just co-opted it.
Yeah,
it's had a firm definition.
Sorry, yeah, I mean like a mutually agreed to definition by in like the press and the various mediums.
Right, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Sorry, I set that up wrong, but it is becoming a bigger tent, and that's going to be painful, and that's going to cause a lot of initial friction between people on the internet because you will have the individuals who are true voluntarists, and will fight an anarcho-capitalist over why you have to have a capitalist system in an anarchist society, and those conversations go on. But the fact of the matter is, because people find it appealing, they're going to self-identify without being fully informed. And God forbid we don't make everybody read a David Bowe's book and then take a test in order to call themselves that. But
why not? I think we should force everyone to be as pure as
Rodger Paxton.
Wow.
Lava Pure. That would be a great name.
Well,
Lava
but see,
Pure.
that's why
Pure
I named
lava.
my podcast the way I did, because there is that difference of, where you are on the journey. My show is not just for anarcho-capitalist or voluntarist. It's also for the minarchist, the libertarian, the small L,
The not
libertarian.
pure people.
Yeah, the statist scum.
Right. Thanks for allowing us in your club.
Well, the way I see it is if I didn't, it'd be a pretty small club.
Yeah. I always like to joke that if a voluntarist tells you you're wrong, does anybody hear it?
Is that how you proposed to Jessica? You said, "Do you want to be in my club?"
I'm not going there. I actually proposed to her in a McDonald's drive-thru.
You did not.
That is so.
Wow.
That is so Arkansan. I can't even take
Oh my God! I feel like Creighton should do that with Whitney
Did you
Davis.
guys get married at White Castle?
it.
Whoa!
They had the reception
did
at
not.
Walmart in the food court.
With pizza catered.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that is a great story. You did it at the drive-thru?
Yeah, we were in the car at the drive-thru. Yeah.
How long? Oh, okay. So neither of you were working there. Because I thought that is like pretty cool. Like if you're working there and then she's coming through and then you just
He
put
made
the
her a
engagement ring
milkshake.
in the Happy Meal.
My love is as hot for you as this fry later.
She was flipping fries, I was flipping burgers. It was magic.
Let's just hash this thing out. Have at it.
How did that come about? You gotta give us the brief story. That's amazing.
Well, it's a very long, convoluted story that would probably make me look like an asshole.
All right. Well,
Like
then
I
we
don't
should
already.
tell it. We should really get into it, right, guys?
I'm dying to know. Can you give us a short?
Just give
short
us the version. Like what?
Well, we were already living together. We were already expecting a
Sinners.
child.
Sinners.
So,
So much sin.
We're kidding. Go
just
ahead.
one of those things.
Yeah.
So did you say I'm as committed to you as this quarter pounder meal that I just ordered and I'm going to be forced to accept and pay for?
No, but damn it, I wish I thought of that.
Did you
Sounds like a solid marriage.
Did you give it to one of? Did you give it to her in one of those Big Mac boxes instead of the ring box?
No. No,
Pop
I
that
didn't go
open.
quite that far. I hit
Sounds like
it,
you just decided to marry her and you happened to be in a McDonald's drive-thru.
Well, I hit it in a chicken nugget. So
Oh, that's brilliant.
But he had to wait 3 or 4 days for it to pass afterwards so he could dig it out.
exactly.
Which actually wasn't a big deal because it's common practice in Arkansas to save your stool.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I heard something just the other day about the amounts of rare earth metals and gold and platinum and things that are being found in poop.
You're kidding me.
So, no, I'm serious as a heart attack. It's very fascinating.
See, I told you that jar of my excrement would come in handy.
That's interesting, though, because, like it's so concentrated in, Australia and China, in the rare earth metals for cell phones, for any of the technology. And so the fact that the United States has tons of human waste talk about a jobs program.
Sure.
Joe Biden should get right on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dig
that would
right
certainly
in.
be dirty jobs.
All right,
Yeah.
so you have sort of convinced me that there is merit in taking a little bit of time to respond to these commenters that are worthwhile. There are people that comment on our page. Let me say this, because I know I am coming across as whiny and annoying and upset at the very people that support the show.
Yeah, your butt hurt.
Like 25% of the people I can't take. I'm ready to block. 75% of the people comment with a very thoughtful comment. But everybody just assumes what I believe or what my point of view is, and because I'm a libertarian, I don't fit into that left or right paradigm, and so I'm hard to argue against. So it takes a little bit longer to have these discussions. We can't get this podcast under an hour and a half anymore. We're almost to 2 hours tonight, and this thing feels like it's flying. So is Facebook and social media, we're not even going to get into Twitter because the answer is no here, but is Facebook a viable place to have political discussions and flesh out ideas? Greg?
That's my biggest point about this argument. I agree with Rodger. It's absolutely necessary you participate in these things because it is the non-commenting, the voyeur that you're actually reaching, watching this debate develop. But whenever you just have to approach it as the person I'm going against, it's a battle of me making them look stupid. And now you don't necessarily have to do it as a trolling
right, but aren't you participating in the very thing that I'm bitching about, is that it's not an intelligent debate? You're just kind of, Lord knows I love to troll.
Yeah. No, and I would contend Facebook is not a viable medium for actually changing the mind of someone you're directly interacting with.
Well, but what is that medium? I think
podcasting, I think essays, articles. I still think the written word is long form written word is something that has to be done, or that in order to change someone's mind, you can't do it in 140 characters or in a Facebook post or in a environment where there's a lot of, there's just a bunch of crap, and the average person doesn't want to sift through all the comments to find the gem.
Well, the average person also who disagrees with you isn't going to get past your first paragraph. They're going to completely check out. Just like with Facebook, you're having that debate against somebody, but keeping your arguments logical, keeping your arguments sincere, and don't pull a Rodger. Don't say, "Man, you're just an ass." I have been on Facebook so many times and just lost my shit to somebody, and that loses the argument for you every time. And I've really had to work hard on that.
Well, see, I refuse from defending myself. I only ask questions.
Yeah.
I absolutely do not think that me telling you what I think, except maybe the voyeur, and that's interesting. I hadn't considered that in this entire discussion we had earlier today. But for me, you'll never change someone's mind if you sit there and tell them what you think and why you think it. Yeah. I almost exclusively ask people questions exposing the flaws, but not in a demeaning, not in a I try to, it's hard to optimize tone when you're having these discussions. But
and you're dead on there, because the more questions you ask, the more you're going to unfurl about the inconsistencies in their argument, and you're absolutely dead on with that.
Maybe as a challenge, we should challenge all of our listeners and the Lava Flow listeners. Every Facebook debate you get in, you're only allowed to use see if you can only use questions.
Yeah, and please go to our Facebook page and participate in the discussions, and
screenshot us if we can't link. If you can't link to it because of privacy stuff, screenshot us, and we're glad to promote you as examples of success.
Yeah, I will concur with what Rodger said, because on my personal page where I do a lot of interacting, I don't do as much on the We Are Libertarians page. It's just sort of like here's this thing, here's my opinion. you deal with it, and then I walk away and watch the world burn. But on my Facebook page, because I get the notifications, I engage a lot more. And most of I don't necessarily do what Greg does. I wish I guess I probably should, but I do a lot of clarifying because people try and do the gotcha thing where they're trying to make you look stupid because they think you're believing one thing, and when in reality they're just kind of reading into what you think. And so I do a lot of clarifying posts, and that always helps a lot. Or I try and find an article that kind of supports what I'm saying, and that helps. And when I got into a discussion with a state senator, 2 state senators actually, and a local prominent Republican attorney on my Facebook page over this bill, I got a lot of private messages from people saying, listen, I don't want to get the notifications or get involved, and I'm not educated enough in this to kind of give my 2 cents on this discussion between you and 2 legislators and a lawyer. But I just want to say thank you for the information. Thank you for having the conversation. I get that a lot. I do actually get a lot of people saying, I'm watching what you're doing, and I don't think that it's like a me thing. I think that your Facebook friends, here's my point, your Facebook friends, when you post a political article and you've made a point, are watching the comments, because I think we think that people are just watching the post. And I'm consistently surprised by the amount of people that read the comments on funny posts, on political posts, on whatever you post, and will make a private comment to you, go, wow, that was really worthwhile, thanks for pointing that or doing that, or, I didn't want to put my name to this, but here's this.
Yeah, and you have to keep in mind that we as libertarians have the most logically consistent philosophy in history. And if you just stick to that, those people who are logically minded, they'll get it. You just have to work on your delivery, make sure that you stick to those points, and like Greg said, ask questions.
I think in the early days of my libertarianism, Facebook commenting and arguing and kind of going back and forth helped me a lot because I had to defend my position. And now that I'm a little older and more surly and a little grislier, I just don't really care as much. Like, here, I've said this is my point of view, and if you don't understand it, go to hell. I don't know if you listen to John Dvorak and the No Agenda podcast, but I feel like I'm turning into that guy. Hannah, what are your thoughts on Facebook comments? And you don't really post too many political articles necessarily.
I think you have to pick your poison. I think some people are literally on there just trying to get you to react to them so they can be like, oh my gosh, I just got you.
Right.
But I think other people out there are sincerely questioning and wanting to know more, and maybe aren't as informed as you are, and you have to just figure out who to respond to and who not to.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts, Rodger, on this?
Well, I've been a listener of WAL for a long time. I just want to thank both of you guys for everything you do and for finally having me on the show. I think the show has just now reached a level of greatness that it never had before.
Oh, well, that is excellent. Well, we're not wrapping up just yet. We want to touch on Iran a little bit. We're just waiting for Greg to get out of the bathroom. See what happens because the podcast runs so long and we don't stop. We like we said, we don't edit. We occasionally, if you hear one of us not talking, it's because Hannah's gone to the bathroom, Greg's gone twice, I've gone.
Or getting divorced.
Right. Or getting divorced. I go to the bathroom.
Or I fell asleep.
I got...
Yes.
On the podcast, I'll get water, I'll reheat my food, I'll go to the bathroom, I'll get divorced. That's the whole gamut in the middle of the podcast.
We're an open book.
Right.
We live our liberty.
So you want to get into Iran and touch on it before we kind of wrap up, and we really need to kind of do a full economic show and a full Iran show. But I think we ought to touch on kind of what the framework was today.
The framework, to give you just the briefest summary possible, is that they are going to reduce the amount of their enrichments substantially in exchange for reducing the economic sanctions. Now, it was done wisely, it was done correctly, because it's something where they have to begin reducing the amount of their centrifuges down from, I think, around 14,000 down to around 6, and agree to not enrich uranium past 3.5%. And then additionally, their most covert, and I would venture a guess, their most advanced nuclear plant which is buried deep in, I think it's FOR something. It's a city in Iran, and it is way down beneath the ground. They are going to convert it to a physics and nuclear energy plant instead of being a place pursuing or enriching uranium for nuclear weapons. And so they have to do that, and it has to be verified by UN inspectors. In exchange, they reduce the economic sanctions against Iran. And make no mistake, Iran is a sleeping giant economically.
Yeah.
If it weren't for the economic sanctions, basically by us and the rest of the Security Council members, Saudi Arabia would not be the dominant player in the region.
I mean, lifting economic sanctions will do so much more for reducing their desire for nuclear weapons than any UN inspector that goes in. You can send 400 Mohammed al-Baradis in there, and it's not going to do nearly as much to diminish their pursuit of nuclear weapons as trading with them, as the free exchange, the free flow of goods.
And that's why I almost think that there's a narrative on the right now around this agreement that us removing the sanctions is going to allow them to make more money, which they're going to flow into Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then the revolution, supposedly Iranian-backed revolution in Yemen by the Houthis. And that's what scares the neoconservative, is that if they do become rich, they'll use it to destabilize countries with Sunni majorities to back Shia majorities. But I really don't think that's a real threat. I look at China, and I look how China's moderated as they become rich. And I really think we should open up full and free trade right out of the get-go. I think that's the smartest decision right away, because no one hates political instability more than the wealthy elite of a society.
Well, and you don't fight with those people you trade with.
Exactly.
I mean, that is the key here.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, as much as you want to, export liberty to Iran using bombs, if we're exporting liberty to them in the form of movies and magazines and things that really show them what Western culture is about, that they're not going to fight with us.
No, and I don't think there's any reason for us to be. I mean, realist. And I've said this before on podcasts. For the United States, Iran is way more of a natural ally than Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and that was a great point you made a couple episodes ago. It was brilliant. You were dead on and 100% correct. They are
my
a
favorite
perfect
listener,
ally
Rodger.
for us. They have been in the past. We need to get back to that. Saudi Arabia is bug nutty crazy.
I'm still going with Nathan Olmstead, but Rodger's good too. So I forget what my point was going to be, but yeah, I was just going to say, the middle class is always moderate. For the most part, with the exception of the Tea Party. But
well, I mean, I think we saw it this week because the wealthy elite are going to govern any society. I mean, because they can influence policy, and so like in Russia this week, Putin decided to sell cheap gas to the Ukraine, which is it plays perfectly into him creating an aura of unpredictability. One minute he's flying over the Baltic states and has Norway's Air Force on high alert. The next minute, he is extending an offer to the Ukraine for heavily subsidized gas in order to, heat and power their economy. But that was what would happen in Iran, because like with China, China's success is almost over 70% dependent upon the U.S. consumers' willingness to purchase their goods. That, in and of itself, prevents all-out war against the Chinese. If the United States does a staggered, progressive removal of economic sanctions, it always looks like we have, we're always dangling the carrot or have our foot, on their neck, holding them back a little bit. I think a full-on U.S.-led onslaught of commerce and trade by American companies offering, the removal of any tariff, maybe even incentivized to conduct trade with Iranian companies and to develop the Iranian economy. That right there will guarantee us not going to war with them in 20 years.
Well, now that they're not doing business with Indiana, they can go do business with Iran.
Well, they might only want to do business with Indiana.
Well, and sanctions, I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have seen the famous video of Madeleine Albright saying that, the sanctions that killed 500,000 kids in Iraq were worth it. Sanctions don't hurt the leadership in Iran. Sanctions hurt the people of Iran. And when you remove those sanctions and those people see what is possible out there outside of their totalitarian regime, it's going to completely change the political landscape of that country.
And kudos one thing too, and Rodger's exactly right, to Barack Obama basically staking the last little bit of the political capital and global leadership capital that he has on this, because his commitment to nuclear disarmament has been from day one, his hot button. And to get this deal initially agreed to as a framework for agreement, because they had to extend talks 2 days. The Iranians tried to sneak in being able to sell enriched uranium at the last moment, right before the talks were due to close 2 days ago. But they were able to hammer it out. John Kerry, I almost never praise you, but this is something that is very, very big. And if it does get finalized on June 30th, which is the current deadline, Barack Obama can say that his entire presidency was not a waste, because as of right now, I don't see in any way you could look at it and examine it as a success. But if he does this, it's huge.
And I like I've said time and time again, I think his post-presidency, much like Jimmy Carter with eradicating diseases, building houses for the homeless, I think Barack Obama's post-presidency thrust is going to be nuclear disarmament. Or he'll go the Clinton route and just get rich.
Well, he's already got that Nobel Peace Prize. He might as well wave it around a little while and try to use it.
Damn right.
Yeah.
But, the main thing about the talks today, the framework, is that, as Sheldon Richman put it, we are a little bit further from war today than we were yesterday. And
precisely.
Every libertarian has to appreciate that.
And that's, what he had no, the president, I was impressed that he was willing to stake everything on this. He was willing to spurn and turn his back on Netanyahu. He was willing to go back to the table after Iran, at the last minute, tries to sneak one more thing in. He's willing to extend it and not walk away as scorned or thinking that it's never going to happen. They're always teasing. It was true statesmanship, is what it was.
Well, for the first time in my life, to take words from Michelle Obama, for the first time in my life, I'm proud of President Obama.
Yep, agreed.
All right, well, we're going to wrap up here, but I have breaking news. 9:43, it's now 9:47, so
it's past your bedtime.
4 short minutes ago, I got a text from Gina Martinez.
Uh-oh.
Totally unsolicited. I haven't talked to Gina in weeks since the last time she was here. I think I scared her off. And the text says, "You smell bad and your mom dresses you funny." So that is the update from Gina. All right, well, Rodger, it has been a trying episode in my life having you on this podcast. I was going to say a pleasure, but again, I don't want to lie.
Well, we're all used to that, us listeners. We're used to you lying anyway, so.
I've told 17 lies in this podcast. See if you can find which one was the lie.
Typical politician.
Yeah. So no, seriously, thank you. We've enjoyed having you on, and I don't mean that sarcastically. People usually can't tell when I'm being serious. Gina, I just sent a photo of Greg talking with Han in the background. Gina writes, "Is that Maya? I can't see on my tiny phone screen." Hannah, you just got confused. Haha.
I've got nothing.
So,
no, it's not Maya.
So, Greg, thank you for being here. Hannah, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. Hey, she has a long commute ahead of her.
I do.
You have to go 3 buildings over.
It's tough, my life.
She lived in the apartment complex at the previous apartment complex. She followed me to this one as well.
I was going to say,
true. Hey, I'm buying a house and moving out, though, so bye.
I just bought the house next door. I wanted you to know.
Creepy.
I mean,
You're
she hasn't
following
moved
who?
in. Let's see if this falls through and she stays wherever you are the rest of your life.
Meant to be forever.
Yep, your fates are intertwined, and there's no breaking that up.
I have there are people that think that Hannah has a crush on me because she teases me so much and is so mean to me.
The power.
Well,
It's the draw power.
right.
No.
When you have
Can I clarify? I do not have a crush on Chris Spangle.
There was a moment where she was single and I was single post-divorce, and we were hanging out a ton, and we were here at the house, and we were watching a movie, and we just kind of looked at each other and was like, should we cuddle?
No, it would have been weird.
No,
so weird.
no. And we both were like, no. There are just some...
And then you signed up for Match.
And then I signed up for it, yeah.
Get a room.
Yeah, right? I wish I were in Arkansas right now, and I never thought I'd say that in my adult life.
Well, you're not coming to Arkansas to cuddle with me, Greg. That's off the table.
He's got a nice bed, though. I let you in.
I know. Right. I just wanted to see the bedroom. I wanted to see the magic happen.
Greg and I are in a Facebook chat, and the title right now is "We Are Libertarians."
Yes.
And someone photoshopped our heads on a couple of bears, and I don't mean grizzlies. Wow. We are Libertarians.
Oh.
It's hilarious. All right. So, final words to wrap up this podcast. Things that you missed. Things that you'd like to discuss. Let's start with Rodger Paxton.
Well, again, I just want to thank you all for finally having me on the show. As much as I've been begging for it, it's finally great to actually speak to you, Greg.
It is. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, and guys, keep up the great work. And next time you want to have a stellar podcast, just ask me, and I'll be here.
All right, Hannah.
I'm going to say the podcast was great because I was here, but
Wow, we are really a humble group, aren't we?
I mean, we're libertarians, so whatever.
Oh,
I did not say that.
wow.
No,
Wow.
we
Write that down.
We have it on tape.
9:51.
2:11.
Yep. 2:11,
9:51.
9:51. Hey,
High five.
we have done it.
No,
We
I'm going to pull a Mike
converted.
Pence right now and reinstate
Google
that.
gobble, one of us. We accept her.
I drank the Kool-Aid. My apologies to
And
my
she
boyfriend.
lived, which is even more shocking.
And I ate the cookies, too.
Oh,
They're
those pot
delicious.
cookies.
The gay cookies.
Oh, man.
Gregory.
A great Rodger. Just to reiterate, great to get to actually finally speak with you. I look forward to at some point, hopefully, getting to meet you in person. I would have loved to have been the keynote speaker, but instead you invited some no-name nobody that I think he might. Was he on like the end of a podcast once or something like that?
I don't know. He doesn't listen.
Yeah, whatever.
Screw him. If you don't listen to this podcast, if one thing is clear from today's Facebook discussion, if you don't listen to this podcast, I don't care about you.
No.
Take that, Mom.
Yeah, and if your opinion's different than mine, don't even think
you.
about voicing
Yeah.
it. And then
cutting
Hannah,
off.
as always, a pleasure. It is fun to always watch you attack Chris, personally, politically.
Totally has a crush on me, right?
I totally does not have a crush on you.
Do you? I feel like she has a crush on you in the way you have a crush on Lindsey Graham.
You mean all out hatred?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Okay, good.
It's funny how close those two are.
See, I
then,
don't actually hate Chris. I just
Right.
pretend to.
Yeah.
oh, we'll see that's flirting.
No.
I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
You
No.
watch. You watch.
No.
And she's kind of old now. She's like 25, 26.
Damn. So old.
Ouch.
My childbearing years are over.
She's got like a 2-year window before Botox comes necessary.
I don't know. Can you turn your head a little? Yeah.
They're actually now making an injection for your double chin to get rid of that. Melts
Ooh.
the fat away.
Why you got to look at me when you say that?
Ouch.
She,
The victimization, always on pursuit of being offended.
I'll tell you what, man. I turn on my phone, my Snapchat to take a picture of something, and that screen is on my face, and I'm like, dear sweet baby Jesus, is that what I look like?
Yes.
Oh, God.
My favorite's that seductive picture of you with that pen that has a particular shape. That is an excellent one, and that's in the wall group. So if you'd like to join that group, I will gladly repost it. But the last thing, and this was a tidbit, this was something that really bothered me today. A sociologist at Occidental College received funding to do a study with absolutely the worst survey research methodology that has ever been constructed in mankind. Basically anecdotal evidence for everything, that if you understand economics, you are immoral.
Okay.
And so the point was that people that have studied economics and understand it are not as it doesn't quote her, but her point is that because you understand supply demand, the basics of economics, you don't care about people. And that
So in
makes
other
you-
words, we should just remain ignorant and
Yes.
let it happen. That makes no sense.
So on the right, we want to suspend, or we want to stop teaching science in, archaeology. But on the left, they actually want to suspend the laws of voluntary exchange, or preach a different view of how it actually works, which arguably you could say macroeconomics is anyway. But you're probably going to hear about this in the major news media. This is coming from a website that kind of is looked at as a filter for what actually ends up making it onto the major shows. Like I bet Charlie Rose will have this sociologist on, and it will become a part of our news and political narrative here.
Well,
for the
I
next
think
couple
part of the
weeks.
issue here is that the left doesn't understand economics, so they think all of those people that do must be doing something evil.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's true. Okay.
And listen to the Lava Flow podcast. It is wonderful.
TheLavaFlow.com.
So here is my final thoughts on Mike Pence, because we're not doing another show on this. First off, to my Christian friends, I'm sorry for being mean to you, and I'm sorry for liking gay people. I just don't have a problem with them. I think they're neat, both in every sense of the word. I'm sorry. I should not have used a homophone there when I was talking about this issue. To my gay friends, I like you. You're neat. I'm sorry for liking Christians too. Both of you quit making me choose a side. And libertarians don't help. I just want to like everybody and get along with everybody except Hannah. Is that too much to ask? I didn't think so.
What you really need to do is just turn the gays and the Christians against Hannah, and then you guys will have that common enemy you can all bond over.
You apparently have never met most of the gays and Christians that Hannah's met, because that's already a success. I need a gay Christian. That's what I need.
Oh,
You're a
man.
gay Christian. Can help me out.
Lindsey Graham.
There you go.
Maybe Tom Cotton. Thank you for that little tidbit of Arkansas gossip.
Yeah.
I'm a very sad person now.
Aw.
Yeah.
So
She has been wearing the same clothes for 4 days now.
Not a true story.
I hate these sorts of brouhahas, since I've already used kerfuffle, because it just brings out the worst in us as people. It brings out the worst in us as people that like to talk about politics, and it makes our respective sides look bad. If you support gay rights, you probably have a ton of friends that are looking at what you're posting and saying, man, I just didn't know I was that far apart from that person. And if you're a Christian, you probably have other people in your life going, man, I didn't know that I was that far apart from this person. And I just hate these phony manufactured things. This bill, all the outrage is just so made up, because the national press, Mike Pence really did have a point. I'm going to say that Mike Pence was right on this. The national media misrepresented Indiana and misrepresented this bill to a large extent. After that press conference, The Wrap, which is a Hollywood gossip site, sent out a breaking news alert that Mike Pence repeals the RFRA law. Couldn't be further from what he had said not even 5 minutes before that. And we posted the picture of that on the Facebook page if you want to see it. I mean, and it just is like, wow, maybe he has a point. And you see it all the time. And so the discussion went from policy and talking about the bill, and went to, well, arguments about freedom of association, arguments about whether or not gay rights is a choice, or arguments. It just was all so pointless, and the way that you carry on your discussions on your Facebook page really do influence how people not only view you, but also how they view your group, and view your political ideologies. So you are posting for all of us, so keep that in mind. Think collectively, people. That's what I'm trying to say. And just be nice to each other, because otherwise I'm probably going to call you an idiot or an asshole on Facebook. I've done that. I'm with Rodger. I'm just done. I'm calling
though,
people
when
assholes.
you speak from a position of privilege because you have 5,000 Facebook friends, people are actually vying and competing to be that next edition. It's not like you have like 6 or 7.
I will tell you, that's not true. I accept everyone. except especially Raven Riley. Anytime I see Raven, there's this one porn star, and I only know her, Hannah, because I reverse Google image searched this girl's photo. Like 24 of this one girl. It's like the same girl but different pictures, and I'm like, why does this girl keep friending me, but she has different names? And I was like, oh, she's a porn star. That's weird.
Yeah, that was a fake
really
account,
weird.
obviously.
Oh, of course, I didn't accept them, but anyways, I don't know. I just totally lost my way in the end of this.
Yeah, out of Spangle's 5,000 friends, 4,990 of them are fake accounts.
They're
Probably.
catfishing.
They're catfishing.
They're actually all feds and NSA agents seeing what kind of awkward predicament they can get him in,
And
Right.
the rest of them just want to post Canadian jokes about it.
which is quite wonderful, and please continue.
Oh, stop, please. All right, thank you for listening to this episode of We're Libertarians. You are all lovely and wonderful people. We like each and every one of you, except the 3 people from the Facebook page I mentioned earlier. You were on my last nerve today. But you're probably not listening anyway. So, and if you are, I apologize. You're pretty cool. Flip-flopper. Always trying to make
He
it.
lies.
Yeah.
There's one of his
Politician.
17 lies.
There's 18. All right. Thank you for listening to this episode. Rodger, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure. You were so good on the podcast because you're just quiet and I forget you're there and your connection is great. And I just forgot for a minute. I was like, I wonder if Rodger hung up as I'm talking. I'm thinking Rodger must be gone because he's so quiet. He's just hanging out.
No, it's called the mute button.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Hannah, thank you for being here. Greg, thank you for being here. And as always, we promise
To do better next time.
I did it. Music for We Are Libertarians is provided by Hoosier musician Brian Keith Wallen. Please check out his website, briankeithwallen.com. The song is Bad Spell.